Ladies and gentlemen, we're back with more Podfest Asia, third virtual event. This is day two, post midnight session. I'm really energized because we have in the house someone that I met, I think, in New York slightly over a year ago. And it was a fascinating eye opener event for me because fashion innovation was probably the most interesting and most well attended and most well organized event I've ever attended in person. So glad that 1 year later, she's on my festival. So, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm good, and thank you so much for the kind words. I'm so impressed with you. Look at everything you've built up. It's so amazing. So you're incredible as well.
You inspired me because I remember walking out from the festival thinking, wow, if I could do this similar event on a small scale, right? That would do very nicely for me, in terms of what I'm going to do in the future, right? Festival curator, that's a really cool title. And of course, you are the model. You're the one who inspired me to do this as well. But of course, pandemic times, only virtual, only online version only, yeah, at this moment.
Exactly. We're all digital, right?
All digital and all in this digital movement. So tell us, how have you been and how are you keeping in? How's things over there in New York? Are you still based in New York?
No, I'm in Palm Beach, Florida now. So I have to say it's beautiful here. Weather is great. I'm good. My kids are good. Everybody's doing well. I cannot complain. I feel blessed, honestly.
Fascinating. And of course, Palm Beach is a place I've never been to before. I would like to visit there one day.
You got to come. You'll be my guest.
Yeah, one day, yeah. And when the borders are reopened, I'll be the first to pack my bags and actually travel overseas to attend more cool events like the one that you set up and organized so brilliantly a year ago. So I'm so thrilled because we know that you're a serial entrepreneur. You're also an industry innovator, Jordana. So I think you're the one who shows the way forward in terms of like the future of building a business in the media and of course the fashion industry. That's something that is very close to your heart, right? Yeah. Post COVID-19. So maybe let's brief about how to actually hold a successful digital summit. That's something that is probably a pet topic, a pet subject, right? Recently, you've done a digital summit that I think experienced a lot of success with over 100,000 audience over 2 days and featuring Goliaths like kind of cool, I think. So tell us about how the event went down.
So it was amazing. We pivoted to online. It was April of 2020. We had about 120,000 attendees in 129 countries, speakers that ranged from Diane von Furstenberg, Kenneth Cole, Mara Hoffman. But then we also really find it important to bring in the startups and the scale-ups that are also making a difference to allow for fully inclusive conversation. And always our key pillars at Fashion Innovation have always been bringing technology, sustainability, and entrepreneurship in the world of fashion. And so those are the speakers that we bring. It's always the CEO and founder to spark an entrepreneurial mindset, but the event was amazing. And I have to say, I think like a lot of people ask us, like, what's your secret? Like, how did you guys get so many people to attend? How do you guys get the speakers involved and all of that type of stuff? And ironically, the real answer is really just building real connections and relationships with people and having these collaborations with great institutions and that support us, like the United Nations Office for Partnerships and Parsons and LIM. And I think that anybody can bring in these types of institutions as long as you approach them with the same values and mission that they have, that you share in common, because collaboration is key for us to succeed, right? And then aside from that, as far as bringing the audience and speakers that we just connected with on a human level and they felt that, I think that when you pivot to online, it's really important to have the right team. So we partnered with an amazing tech company that did all of the behind the scenes tech wise for us to have everything go seamlessly. So nothing happens with just like the founder going at it alone. It takes a team, and sometimes it takes an army to make things happen. But I think if you just like go at it with a genuine reason and purpose why you're doing what you're doing, people are attracted to it. So we did that in April. We did another one in June, another one in September. And then our latest one was 3 weeks ago, digital. We had about 50,000 speakers in just one day. It was amazing once again, and very it's been a blessing, and we're loving doing it. And I think if we do go back to physical, I would say it's not going to be maybe the same format. I think the format of speaking, we're going to keep digital because you bring the world together. So if you really want to make an impact and you really want to make change, you need everybody to be a part of the conversation. So yeah, so that's just a little bit.
You mentioned that you had so many great partners, right? And was it the UN that you mentioned? They're also part of your lineup of partners that are with you all the way from your earlier edition right to your recent event 3 weeks ago. And they basically feel that your audience and your demographics really match with the people that they're targeting, right? So it's quite similar to what's happening in the podcasting world, where brand advertisers love to place advertisements in podcast shows where those podcast episodes, right, really talk to the kind of audience they want to target. So it's basically the same formula, but of course you do it in a larger scale and with a bigger organization. So it's great to hear you doing so well, and of course continuing to inspire people around the world, even like me, to also do an event, smaller scale, a big one. Yeah. So I want to maybe talk about this future of fashion and sustainability. I think these are the buzzwords, right? And of course, there are many tactics to level up any brand to meet these new standards. So I'm not so familiar with the fashion industry, but how are things, developing in terms of what's the future of this fashion as well as sustainability going to be like, especially 2021 and beyond?
So it's an interesting question. I don't think the fashion industry is going to change forever in every way. I think there's a lot of things that are going to stay, but I think the things that will stay with innovation. So for example, we speak about retail. A lot of people are like, is retail dead? Is retail? It's not dead. Retail is always going to be there. People are always going to want to go to a store to shop. However, in order for retail to stay alive and to do well, they're going to have to innovate in terms of giving the customer an experience where the customer is not just going anymore to just buy a piece of clothing, but they want to feel an experience. They want to feel connected to the brand. So they're going to have to figure out ways. There's so many technologies out there that really allow for better customer interaction, consumer engagement. So those things are going to have to be put into play. You look at runway shows. People are like, are runway shows still going to exist? Is Fashion Week still going to be there? The answer for me is yes. Fashion shows are a part of fashion history. They cannot go away. We need them, right? The only difference, I think, is instead of having New York Fashion Week, where you have these people maybe that just want to go to the show to take a selfie of themselves and say like, hey, I was here, and post on Instagram. I think maybe we don't need to have them at the show. I think the show is intended for the buyers and the journalists and what it originally was intended for. So I think if we go back to what it was intended for, I think that the runway shows are going to continue, because I feel like it kind of became this like messy thing where you didn't know like who was who, and are you supposed to be here? Do you just want to be here to be shown? So I think that's going to kind of go back to its original purpose, especially, even after COVID. I think people are going to be more careful about these packed rooms of people. I think as far as technologies go, I think that to lessen the carbon footprint, making things more sustainable, I think we're going to see a lot of things which we're already seeing when it comes to virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and all of those things for 3D runway shows, 3D showrooms. I think that a lot of like dyeing techniques for fabrics, I think we're going to see a lot of companies that I've already seen a few where they use machinery that can actually put dyes into like different like threads and things like that. Using algae in the ocean to create soles for the shoes, using algae also for ink. So there's like so many different things that we're seeing with technology. So yes, I think the fashion industry moving forward, the only way forward is sustainable. Now, what does that mean? I don't really know, because I feel like there's a million meanings to sustainability. Everybody has their own meaning. But I think that as long as whatever sustainability means to you, I think if a designer goes with whatever the meaning to them of sustainability is and adapts it into their business model, we shouldn't look at someone, that maybe is trying to become more sustainable, and because they're not doing it, what the perfect thing that someone thinks sustainability means, we shouldn't boo them. We should applaud them, because it's a step in the right direction. And I do think, last thing I'll say is, it's the first time ever that we as a world have gone through this pandemic situation in this type of manner. So I think that people just want to have a better lifestyle for themselves. They want to treat the world better. They want to treat the environment better. So I only see sustainability coming out on top of this. And technology plays a huge role in making sure that happens via innovations.
This is brilliant. And thanks for sharing that, especially for someone like me who's not so well versed in your industry. But it's always great to catch up and, of course, attend your event to find out exactly what's going on in that realm. And of course, there's a lot of exciting activities. And this excitement is due to the all this innovation that are still going on, right? And during these pandemic times, we see more creativity, more ways of running. Like what you mentioned, all your runway shows, especially, and incorporation and implementation of AR, VR into some of these creative projects. So I noticed that your running theme in most of the things that you do, or events especially, and all your projects, right? They all have this great causes and, of course, great mission and purpose. So are you looking to also focus some of your digital summits, for example, and maybe pivot them into other multi-channels? Like these days, right, I'm actually, as a podcaster, I'm supposed to be just like publishing some of my podcast shows on Spotify, Google, or Apple Podcasts. But I'm like also seeing more action in Clubhouse, which is an app I think that's really taken off this year, with many people actually predicting the death of podcasting as a result of that. So I'm actually, looking at different ways where, we can still find our audience, still connect with people, right? So are you also like thinking of using this new medium, especially podcasts, which isn't really that new, but has recently really gone mainstream, or even a social audio app, which is Clubhouse, as one of the other channels for you to continuously engage your audience?
Yeah, so what's really interesting is it's funny you mentioned Clubhouse. So podcasting, I feel like because we have a lot of, I feel like fashion is a very visual industry. So for us, it's important to have, like right now, this is visual. It looks amazing. You're doing an amazing job with this. So I think podcasts, just to listen, I think people feel like they want to see to connect, right? So I think if we did it, we would just keep creating this content that we do at our events. Maybe when we're not having events, just keep creating content. But I do think that Clubhouse, I started using it about 2 weeks ago, and I just wanted to test it out and see what it was like. And I have to say, I'm super impressed at the different connections that I've made. And I've been very ballsy and like going into a room, I always raise my hand to try to add some value. But in 2 weeks, I'm almost at 1,000 people following. And I'm like, wow, like this was so much faster than any other medium to get followers. Two, I think that I'm reaching people that maybe I wouldn't normally reach just saying fashion, sustainability, technology. And they're people that even though maybe they're not in those industries, they're people that they can be beneficial to other parts of what I'm doing, or even to what I'm doing in fashion, but whether it's like an investor or a mentor or whatever it may be. And last but not least, I still think that the general consumer, if you take someone, and I'm just going to mention a place, and it's not because this place, I'm not saying that people there are ignorant, but I'm just going to mention a place just to mention a place. But let's say like you look at people, like let's say you take a 16-year-old who's a high school student in Minnesota, Midwest, middle of America. She's never heard the term sustainability. She goes shopping. Forever 21 is her favorite store. It's always going to be that way if she does not know where to go to find information about what's right and what's wrong when it comes to purchasing decisions. So Clubhouse has allowed, in a way, the space where you can go into any room that has like 500 people, raise your hand, and just throw in what you do and say, everybody's invited. There's no fee. Everybody can learn more about sustainability. And it brings a whole new group of generations and people that can then become part of your network. So I think Clubhouse is genius based on what I've seen. And just a little sneak peek, because we haven't told anyone yet, but Fashion Ovation, we're going to send out our first email newsletter next week. And we're going to tell our entire audience that every week at a certain time, at a certain day, we're going to start doing Clubhouse rooms where we'll be able to actually have our audience network with each other, and then eventually bring in our keynote speakers to do chats with us and bring people up from the audience so they have a chance to engage with our speakers. And I think that's the way forward, and I think it's genius.
This is fantastic. Remember a few months ago, maybe like a year ago, I was like suggesting that, oh, you should do a podcast because I'm from this place, right? And now look, you're doing audio and you're doing it in a very large scale way because you already have 1,000 followers in just two weeks. Imagine in 2 months, in 2 years. That's like probably, the fastest way to actually get more people understand your message and also being able to appreciate the great things and also the causes that you're backing, especially from fashion innovation. This is a great way to actually get your brand message out there. It's also important, for you to continuously engage, right? And also encourage audience participation. What you mentioned earlier about raising your hand and going on stage, right? That's something that I like to do as well all the time because sometimes we just want, our voice to be heard. And of course, if we have a just cause.
Yeah. And the thing too is what separates someone from the other in Clubhouse. There's a lot of people that are there just for themselves, and you see who those are because they raise their hand and they're like, I do this. If you guys want my services, DM me. What value does that bring to someone? Not really, because one, you have no idea who that person is. Two, they're just selling you right off the bat and it's not attractive, right? So I think if you can find a way to really add value, don't worry about pitching yourself. Eventually, once that relationship is created, a person will find out what you do. And if they need it, they'll come after you. You don't have to sell it. So I really want to create something. And I'm still thinking about it. And I'd love to co-moderate a room with you because I think you're amazing. But I think if we were to do a room where it truly brings value to people and people can really feel like they're being heard and no one is pitching anybody, but we're just in a conversation, I think that would be really refreshing to people because there's a lot of rooms, and I'm not going to mention which they are, but I feel like it's a lot of just everybody talking about how great they are, and I think that doesn't bring value to anybody. So, yeah.
And those rooms are really bad because I've been in a few of those rooms, and normally the largest rooms on Clubhouse, and there's so many people on stage talking over each other, and the moderator is like kind of losing control, and there are times where you ended up in a fight. And those kind of rooms that, it could be well managed if the moderator really, do a really great job. And I know that you're a great moderator. I've attended your panels before where you are moderating as well. So those rooms that you open, right, I'll be there to support 100%. And in fact, I think it's also like synchronicity in play again, because after this event, which is a stream over on LinkedIn, we're going to do a post-festival in conversation series live on Clubhouse. So every keynote speaker is re-invited back so that we can also do like a Fashion Innovation Presents, Clubhouse session. And we're going to invite the other keynote speakers to come and listen to you. So that's one way for us to really connect with one another. And I think we can all lift one another and raise the tide so that all boats are lifted together, right? This is how we can maybe really see more action and take concrete action to support one another. And I think this is one way where Fashion Innovation Talks and probably PopFest Asia can really come together. And of course, our other keynote speakers as well. They would love to find out what they're doing.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. And I know a lot of people were so excited about this today. I don't know if they were able to tune in, but we're definitely huge supporters of what you do. And I think it's amazing what you've grown into it so far, and whatever we can do to collaborate and keep, cross-promoting each other to grow together. That's what it's all about. I think, I don't think any other way. So I think it's great.
This is fantastic. So I'm going to maybe go deeper into the idea for your events, right? I think Kristen, you birthed this event together with your partner. So was this entirely your doing or with your partner, or somebody else's idea or suggestion? Or even was it a client request that actually inspired you to start Fashion Innovation?
No, it was me and my partner. So my partner comes from entrepreneurship. He moved to Brazil. He moved from Brazil to the US 5 years ago with not much English at all. So when he came here, I was already pregnant with our first baby. And he literally was like, what am I going to do? Because I have to, she's pregnant. I have to work. He's not someone who's lazy. He's always worked and always been really good, but in Portuguese in Brazil. So he came to me, just pretty much was like, look, maybe we can build something of our own. What if we, bring in the entrepreneurship world that I know and a fashion world that you know, and mix it up. Like, is there a space where people want to know more about the entrepreneurial journey in fashion and technology and innovation? Because that's the world that he's always been in. And then I said, yeah, I think that could be really cool. So we literally one day we were like, fashion innovation, okay, this works. And we just went with it. And it's crazy to think, because it was like June 2018 when we just like sat down and had to first talk about it. And September 2018, so June, July, August, 3 months later, we had our first event in New York during Fashion Week. Almost 50 speakers, like partner at IBM, directors of NASA, like incredible people. And already, even it was our first event, we had already like 450 guests. It was amazing. We were like, whoa, like there is something here, you know? And then we just took it from there. So yeah, it was really a need, because we were like, you know, we need to create something so we can raise our family. And I had to, at that time, I already had the first baby and I was pregnant with the second. So it was really for us to build a life for ourselves, doing something that we love. That's really what it was.
This is brilliant. I remember I attended one of those events, so I could see for myself, you know, how colorful, how vibrant, and the energy in the room was impeccable. And the people there are all amazing, many creatives, of course. So I would definitely want to ask you about your superhero stories. Like, who are your fashion superheroes, and what ignited your passion about fashion in the first place?
My fashion superheroes. That's a good question. I'll get back to that one. Never want to leave, but I'll go to the second one. What got me into fashion? So I have a love for people, and I can't express that enough. I say it all the time, but like, I got into fashion not necessarily for my love of fashion, but my love of people. And fashion is the biggest industry in the world if you really want to connect globally with everybody, because everybody wears clothes. Whether you consider yourself to be fashionable or not, we all wear clothes. And so I'm like, you know, if I go into this industry and I figure out a way to do something that's impactful, I can impact billions of people worldwide. That was why I went into fashion. That's really the true reason. Fashion superheroes. It's so funny because a lot of people are like, you know, who motivates you? Who inspires you? This is kind of similar. And I never can answer just one person, because I think different people inspire me for different reasons. So I'll just shoot some names out, but there's many more that I won't have time to. But Rebecca Minkoff, I think she's amazing. She has 3 kids. She's this like Wonder Woman. She just wrote a book. She has a female founders collective. She has her brand. She's always like innovating and always bringing diversity to her platforms any chance she gets. So that's one. Then you look at Diane von Furstenberg, legend, and what she's created and how now she pivoted everything to online, and she was able to do it so smoothly. And she's just someone who's always been so true to who she is and always goes to her events, and she's always there. She was just on Clubhouse like 2 days ago. I was shocked. I saw like Diane von Furstenberg with Facebook. I'm like, what? So the woman is amazing. Then you look at Kenneth Cole, gives back so much, super philanthropic, always has been. Now he started the Mental Health Coalition during COVID to help people with mental health. So there's so many people that use fashion to really inspire. And that's, to me, what a superhero is somebody who uses what they do to inspire, regardless the industry you're in. So that would be my answer.
Awesome. And how did you hustle in the beginning to build a resume for your current role? You know, did you have to like give up a high-paying job or career to do what you are currently doing and do what you love?
Oh my gosh, I went through so much. So I have to be honest, and I say like I'm just gonna throw it out. So when we started Fashion Innovation, we literally bootstrapped everything. We took every dollar we ever saved, and we're like, let's just do it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I don't know what's gonna happen. And we did it. And I think it was like 8 months into the business, we were like, crap, we're 3 months behind on rent. Like, we cannot do this. So we literally lost everything. We lost our apartment. We lost everything we had. We took the kids. We went to Brazil. We lived with my husband's mom with a 1-bedroom apartment, all of us. We didn't even, it's so embarrassing to say, but it's true. And you know what? It's not embarrassing because it makes us who we are today. And we lived it to like be here and be stronger. But we didn't even have money to buy a loaf of bread at the market. We had to ask his mom to give us money to buy bread. That's how bad it got. But we were like, you know what? We're going to pass through this because we believe in the business. We're just going to keep pushing through. And it was like a few months of that struggle, and it was super difficult. There was nothing easy about it. But in retrospect, we were able to turn things around in that situation. We were able to keep pushing through, keep contacting the right people. And then instead of coming back to the US and going to New York, we came back to the US and we came to Florida where the living is cheaper. We made it work. And here we are today, like so much better than we've ever been and growing every day. And I feel like it's the journey. And that's what I always say. It's not about where you are today. It's about your journey. And without a journey, that's not life. We all need to live that journey to really look back when we're in our deathbed and say, wow, I lived, I failed, I learned, I succeeded. Because no matter what, success is different to everybody. To me, success is just going after what I want. Whether or not I'm a millionaire, I don't care. I never counted money. Money is not what drives me, but it's about failing, getting back up and keep going. Go after your dreams, go after what you want, because at the end of the day, that's all you have. It's your one life as you. So that's it.
That's beautiful sharing. And that's so inspirational. That's why it's so exciting for me, from so far away, right? Watching you grow and also watching Fashion Innovation really taking off. And it's also very exciting to see how you develop. And of course, you mentioned about failing forward, right? And coming back up each and every time after you encounter a hurdle. But that is what builds you and make you more resilient. So pandemic, doesn't matter, you can always
this is nothing.
Something else that's even better than before. So it's really exciting to see, you make progress in doing all these amazing events as well. So before we let you go, we definitely have to ask you some podcast related question because it's Podfest Asia. And I'm going to ask you about fashion podcasts because we know that you probably listen to many favorite fashion industry podcasts that are available that maybe I'm not aware of. So what are those that help you to improve your knowledge, skills, or even grow your passion for fashion, or just to be entertained? So maybe make some recommendations for our audience.
Yeah, so I have 3, I think, for different reasons. So Retail Revolution, I really enjoy what they do. They're just great guys above it all, but they really tell the storytelling behind a person. No matter how big the guest is, they go deep in that person's character and who they are and how they were built. And I love that. So I think they do a great job. Rebecca Minkoff, I'm going to bring her up again. I'm just a girl fan, but she has a podcast that I think she does a wonderful job because, again, she brings such diverse voices and always at the right time when it's needed to hear from those types of voices. So I think she's amazing. And then last but not least, we'll go with Entreprenistas, Social Fly. So I feel like they do a really, really great job just in terms of women empowerment and women female founders. So I think the 3 of them I would say are the ones that I always kind of look at. But honestly, I have to be honest, with 2 babies and running the business and trying to scale it, I barely have time to I'm I want to read more. I want to listen to more podcasts, but time is limited.
Thank God for Clubhouse because you can finally consume all the great audio content and of course borrow wisdom from so many incredible people. I think that you have seen so many celebrities or even fashion industry icons appearing in Clubhouse, right? And they're so willing to share and help and dish out advice. So I think that's definitely the future of podcasting, where podcasters are all moving there as well. Probably we'll see 1 million new podcasters coming out of Clubhouse as a result of this app, yeah?
I have to mention one more thing. So did you see the article? So Mark Cuban is coming out with a new app that's like Clubhouse. So that should be interesting. I don't know what to expect with that, but we'll see when that comes out.
I heard rumors that it's going to be full of AI features that before, you even enter a room, right? It already matches you with all the podcast guests or all the celebrities or all the people that you want to interview. So it's AI doing all the heavy lifting. You no longer need to go to room just to figure out, is this the room for me? So it's automation steroids. I'm really excited as well to see how Fireside is going to change the game again. That shows that you really, adapt and always grow, right?
Yeah, no, totally. And I know the rumor makes sense in a way because he's a big fan of artificial intelligence. It's what he's investing in a lot lately. And so, that's that should be super interesting. So, but no, I'm excited. I think this is the way forward. And I think, again, like, I love Instagram. I love all the platforms that are out there, but I think a lot of times we miss engaging, right? We miss like the interaction. And I think that's what people are looking for. Everybody, no matter like what your community looks like, everybody wants to feel more connected. We kind of feel especially now, we're so separated in so many different ways. So yeah, should be interesting.
100%. That's why we love your events, because that's where we can feel each other in terms of like, we don't just talk to them. We want to feel the people that we're connected to as well. So thank you so much for agreeing to do this again. This is, I think, the third podcast we are doing together. So I'm excited with the Clubhouse event. So I'm going to insert you in the Podcast Asia Clubhouse event. And I'm going to be also guesting on your event. So I think that's one way we can actually share audiences together.
Yes, I would love that. And again, thank you so much. It's always so much fun talking to you. I feel like it's so easy and I feel comfortable. So thank you so much. You do a great job.
Thank you so much, Jordana. I look forward to see you in Clubhouse. Goodbye.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye. That's Jordana. Thank you, Gabriel, for your lovely comments. Great talk. Yes, you should check out Fashion Innovation Talks. They have so many great content. I think they have a great Instagram page as well. And of course, soon to come, their Clubhouse live event where I think you are able to rub shoulders or maybe interact. Finally, we know with all these fashion icons and fashion industry people. So it's great that we're using this platform to put a spotlight on fashion innovation and have this ability to reconnect with Jordana again, someone that I met in New York over a year ago. So it's great to reconnect with her, and always we have a very nice chat as a result of that. So I basically re-energized, when she comes on to the festival. And of course, I hope that we'll get the same as well from our next speaker. Mark Sullivan is someone that I really look up to. He's doing something for years and recently pivoted to doing remote podcasting. So we're very eager to find out what he's up to. So I'm going to remove this banner first and then invite Mark on stage. How are you, my friend? Can you hear me, Mark? Mark, we don't have your audio yet. Can you hear me? Maybe turn your phone.
I'm doing good. How are you, Wayne?
Horizontal, yeah. Are you able to turn your phone horizontal? Better, yes. So let's give you some time to get settled. Just now it was great. Now it's perfect. So tell us your location. Tell us exactly where you are right now. If you could hear me. You need to unmute yourself because we can't hear you. Yeah. Can't hear you. Maybe what you can do, you can exit and then re-enter again. Try that, yeah. So let's give him some time to settle down. So about Mark Sullivan. He is the founder of Snowboard Project. So we're going to deep dive and check with him later on about what he's up to with the Snowboard Project. And of course, he has more than one podcast. I think he has 5 podcast shows. So it's something that is someone who's really interesting. I've been looking forward to talk to him during this event. So while we patiently await his reappearance, let's maybe just reset this again and maybe tell everyone what this PodFest Asia is all about. It's an event which is monthly and it's not behind a paywall. It's free to attend. Anyone can just, click on the link and basically have access to the conversations and, of course, the knowledge and resources that we are sharing throughout this 48-hour marathon live stream. So I'm trying to bring in as many speakers as possible because I think it's important during pandemic times, right, to put a spotlight on other things, other great stuff that are out there. Many people are creating great content, great podcasts. They also have abundance of knowledge to share with podcasters like us on things like how to monetize our podcast, how to maybe level up your sound quality of your podcast shows, how to even do like live events, how to organize and build a community, how to do Clubhouse, how to record on Clubhouse without having to invest in $1,000 Rodecaster Pro, things like that. So we are going to continue with our conversation with Mark.
All right.
Now you sound sweet, my friend.
Thank you. Yeah, I stepped up to my actual mic setup. So yeah, I'm back.
This is perfect. I think your mic quality, the mic setup is It's incredible. What gear are you using? Are you able to walk us through your gear setup?
Yeah, I'd love to. So basically, I have like a Apple computer system, and I record. When I record, I go right into Adobe Audition. So that's my DAW workspace, and then I go into the computer. My interface is a Universal Audio Solo, which is actually a great interface. I just stepped up to that from like a Focusrite Scarlett, and that allows you to do inboard, inline, like channel strip kind of filters, so you can do like EQ and compression before it even hits the computer. So that's pretty cool. And then I have United Studio Technologies FET47 microphone, which is basically a knockoff of a Neumann U47. But it sounds pretty good, I think.
Over here, it sounds perfect. Sweet. And I think this is probably one of the recommended setup that other podcasters, if you're figuring out your setup, right, just maybe hit you up and try to get a list of your gear, equipment list, and probably they can get started podcasting as well. So we're definitely not going to be focusing on talking about gear. This is not a gear talk show. Okay. Let's talk about the snowboard project, because we're in Asia. We barely get snow here. So I'm very envious of people who get tons of snow. But of course, maybe not too cold, but still good enough for you to do snowboarding. And of course, all the sport that is probably part of your DNA, right? Yeah. Tell us how you get started on this snowboard project and how many years you've been doing this.
Okay, so, well, I got started. I've worked in media now for since I was a teenager. And so I started magazines. I worked at other magazines, built and sold magazines. And I, as a sideline job, I was working in television as like an expert for I'll move my pop filter out of the way so it's not blocking me. But I worked as an expert on snowboarding for NBC Sports, which is it's like one of the biggest channels here in America. And so I would go to the Olympics and just kind of be an expert on NBC Sports. Then I took a job with Eurosport Television. So I got to meet the guy who was the vice president of online for the Discovery Channel, for Eurosport, for like 40 different TV networks here in America. And he was like, podcasts, that's the future. And I was like, okay. So about 3 months later, I just started recording interviews. And so I recorded, and because of my background, I had a lot of connections. I knew people. And so I stacked up about 35 interviews, kind of not knowing what I was doing. And then I launched the snowboard project. I started, and this is a mistake that I can maybe help people with, but I started with 3 shows a week, and each show was between an hour and 2 hours long. And I would do 3 of those every week for the first year. So I did 100 episodes. It's just snowboard season. So September through April, 3 a week. And, at that time, I didn't really think about like the audio quality or the equipment. I was just thinking about the people and the stories. And then in year 2, I started doing a deeper dive on equipment and that kind of thing. Well, that was 3 years ago. And now I put in, I don't know, a crazy amount of hours and effort into figuring out podcasting and telling stories, and also working on different formats of shows, and just trying to be creative and express my creativity through podcasting instead of through print media or television. So that's kind of my podcasting backstory.
This is a brilliant story. I always love to hear how podcasters, started out. And of course, you started doing this because of your passion for this sport, right? And I was quite surprised when I was looking at your LinkedIn, right? You attended the X Games. Is it called X Games? For the first time recently. And having been focusing on this sport, right? But the first time you attended that was actually recently. Tell us, how did that happen?
Okay. Well, the funny thing is, so back in, I don't know, around 2005, I got tapped on the shoulder and they're like, hey, you should pick the athletes to compete in the X Games. And I was like, sounds great. Sounds pretty powerful. But also, I don't want to tell anybody because I'm just going to get calls from athletes and agents and all sorts of people. So for 8 years, I was on a panel of people who picked the athletes to compete in the X Games. And I guess I just always saw it as this thing that was kind of made for TV, where it's like the best seat in the house is actually on your own sofa. instead of like being there in big crowds and trying to work your way to the front or whatever, I was like, you know what, I'll just watch it from home, and I'll go snowboarding myself and just avoid the crowds. And so eventually last year I was kind of like, I had some friends who were competing and stuff, and I was just like, you know what, I should probably go to this thing. So I went, and it was a really cool event in person. I got pretty good access to it, so that was nice. But still, the best seat in the house is at home. I was right to some degree.
Where is home right now?
I'm in Denver, Colorado. I live here in Denver for most of the year, and then I built a cabin in Alaska, and it's off the grid. I just put in a well, so now there's like water. There's not running water because you literally pump it like out of the well into like containers and then get it out of the containers. But anyhow, it's an off the grid cabin in Alaska, which happens to be in the best place in the world to be a snowboarder. And so, to give you an idea, it has like direct access to 1 billion acres of backcountry snowboarding terrain, just mountains and glaciers and all that kind of stuff. And that's larger in scale than every ski area in the world combined. And that's just like right outside of my door in Alaska.
Wow. So that must be a sight to behold. And if I'm going to go pick up this sport, right, that is the go-to place, yeah?
That's where you work yourself up to. And so generally it's like once you've been riding for 10 or 15 years, you're like, oh, I wonder why all the pro athletes are like, Alaska's the spot, Alaska's the spot, Alaska's the spot. And then once you go there, once I went there, it was like the very first run was the best run of my life up until that point. And then it just got better and better and better from there. And I eventually started a festival in Alaska. After I sold a magazine, I started a festival in Alaska to just share those mountains and terrain with more people. Eventually, someone tapped me on the shoulder and was like, hey, I bet you'd like to have a place here. And I was like, yes, I would. And they're like, well, we'll sell it to you. And I was like, yes. So, I mean, that was a while ago. And so I ran this event called Tailgate Alaska for about 10 years, brought about 5,000 people to Alaska. But the thing with Alaska is that it's all backcountry. There are no lifts. There's no ski patrol. And so you could die doing this. There's avalanches. There's all sorts of like risks, like glaciers, which have holes in them that are called crevasses that you can fall in and disappear. And it's dangerous. And so I started an event, and this is like, I guess this will tell you something about me, but I started an event where basically the barrier to entry is that you have to be willing to die doing what you love.
Wow.
And so I had 5,000 people show up who were willing to die doing what they loved over 10 years. But still, I mean, running an event that like where someone could die at a moment's notice is like really mentally taxing. And so after a while, and I designed the event because I was like, this is how I would design an event for myself. And so eventually I found a guy to run the event. So now he runs the event and I just show up and enjoy it.
It's mind-blowing. And of course, you're taking that risk because of your passion, right? And there are so many people in your tribe with the same passion and willing to die for it. There's something really admire about risk takers. I think your story right there really hits it across. And I'm going to ask you about your podcast again, because this season you have gone through a little bit deeper, right, in uncovering like unique stories in winter sports, especially. So yes, probably something to do with the fact that you've really done like what you mentioned, 230 episodes so far with many of all these stars of the sport.
258 episodes. The 258 came out today. So when COVID struck last year, like the whole world went into lockdown, and the winter sports world as well. And prior to that, I had been doing, in the second year, I did like 2 shows a week, which was more manageable. I'm still doing 2 a week, but it was more manageable. So I did a news show, and then I would do like an interview with like either a famous athlete or someone who had contributed to the growth of the sport over time. Well, after COVID hit, I was like, okay, to get back to our normal, maybe there's some other kinds of shows that I could do. And so I started a bunch of different, just totally different kinds of shows. So one was called like Lift Ticket, Resort Riding in COVID Times. And so the idea there was like, if in these COVID times, like what's it going to be like when you try to go to your resort, right? So that was one of the shows that I came up with. Another one was called Go Snowboarding, and that was basically for people, if COVID didn't work out with the resorts, then I was teaching people how to build their own resorts. So I talked to a guy who built his own resort. I talked to people about like how to build your own ski lift. And it actually appeals to this whole mindset of people who are like just engineering minded, like, you know, very detail oriented, science minded type people who are just building things. And so I just found this new audience through this Go Snowboarding podcast. I still did the news. I still did the weather, or I still did the news and the interviews. And then I also added one, let's see, Go Snowboard. I have so many different shows now. It's hard to keep track of them all, actually. I have one called The Microcast, which is a really short one, 3 to 5 minutes long, which is basically just news and weather. Just try to keep you abreast of what's going on. I have an entertainment show called The Hamburg Meat Grinder, which is basically two guys co-hosting. It's a video show. I basically do the control room remotely and then produce the show. So that's an interesting one as well. I just launched a new show today called Close Calls in the Backcountry. And so basically this year there have been more avalanche fatalities than any year in recorded like skiing and snowboarding history. And so when I've had close calls in the backcountry where like a narrow scrape with an avalanche or something like that could have killed you, but it didn't. And that kind of like gave me the awareness that like, hey, you got to learn more. And so just by having people tell these stories about their close scrapes with nature, I think that gives people hopefully the motivation to try to, learn more. And that's actually through Clubhouse. And so, about Clubhouse, I met you on there, Wayne. And so I record that show through Clubhouse. I use the people to tell the stories from the audience, and I just pull them up on stage one at a time and have them tell their stories. And I have a panel of experts already up there on the stage, and they kind of like analyze the mistakes after the fact. And then when I'm recording it, everyone agrees to be recorded. Then I repackage it into a podcast. The first episode came out today.
This is fantastic. I think you're the right person to ask you the next question. Do you think that the next 1 million podcast shows will actually come out of Clubhouse versus like a year ago, right? 1 million new shows were created because of Anchor, because it's free, easy to record, easy to distribute across so many different podcatchers. Do you think the next 1 million shows will come out from Clubhouse?
I think it could actually. I mean, I think it is just such a platform that's built to just bring people in to interview or whatever, that it's just natural for podcasting. And so right now, though, it's so early in Clubhouse like timeline. It's like it's not even a teenager yet. It's still a little kid who just is learning how to walk, right? And so I think that people will learn, and the software will evolve over the next few months anyway, where it will become more and more suited for recording podcasts. But yes, I think certainly that it's just tailor-made for podcasting.
So right now you're basically, masking taping apps together, like having creativity in your gear setup so that you could actually bring audio into Clubhouse and pull audio out as well, right? So that requires some, period of time of figuring out how to actually do this. So how fast did you actually discover that you could actually record all of your sessions on Clubhouse?
Well, I actually had basically all the equipment just from podcasting. And so I actually have a Rodecaster Pro, which I used for remote interviews primarily. So I was just using that when I need to get someone who was like in Slovakia or something, and I wanted to interview them from Denver, from Alaska, or whatever. I could contact anyone. Well, I was like, well, the same way I interview those people, I could just plug that into my phone and go into Clubhouse. And so I had to buy one cord. And so that was pretty straightforward for me. And then as soon as I got on there, and it's not a huge difference because the iPhone, it's only iPhone on Clubhouse right now, but the microphone is like kind of decent on an iPhone. But there's a couple of little things that I've learned along the way. For instance, as soon as you plug in to an external device, it asks you music mode or talking only. You always hit music mode because that gives you uncompressed audio.
No, I learned something new.
Yeah, there you go, Wayne. Yeah. So, and there's a number of ways that you can plug in directly into Clubhouse. Like the cheapest one is like $40. That's like an iRig. And so you need like a little dongle. It has like an 1/8 inch out, and then you can put an XLR cord into it, and that'll give you like professional microphone audio in Clubhouse. That's the cheapest way to do it. There's a number of different interfaces that will go directly into Clubhouse. The most affordable one is going to be the Zoom P4, and that's about $200. But that's also basically equivalent to a Rodecaster in that you can plug in 4 mics. It also records. It does it on individual tracks. It's actually a nice piece of kit. There's also a couple of new interfaces that have just been released that will also do Clubhouse. So, but basically you need something that you can go into your interface from a phone cable. And so I can.
Is it a phone cable that looks like 3 stripes?
I was going to show you the phone cable. So there's the 3 stripes on one end, and then it has the then it has the iPhone on the other end. And so just connect that, the iPhone and then the cable into the Rodecaster, and that gives you audio in and out of Clubhouse. And it actually gives you, the only downside is that if you have more than people talking or interrupting, you only have 1 track coming out of Clubhouse. So Clubhouse people, if you're listening, I would love to have each person come through on their own track so I can edit it later. But if they did that, it would be undeniable. But that's where the competition will come in, because there will be competing platforms for this kind of new form of social media, which is kind of this like audio social media. And I'd say Clubhouse is like the first popular one, but there's one called Spaces that Twitter is going to come out with or is working on right now. And there's one called Fireside that a guy, kind of a famous business guy in America, Mark Cuban, is behind. So there will be more, but Clubhouse has the momentum right now. Either way, I think it's valuable to know how to work with like this new audio social media. And so regardless of whether it's Clubhouse or Fireside or Spaces or whatever, Facebook comes up to compete with Clubhouse, because I know that they're, a little bead of sweat is rolling down their forehead right now. Like, we got to do something about this. So I think that audio, though, is here to stay as far as social media, because I think there's like this addiction that people get to Clubhouse. It's unlike the other social media platforms. I mean, people are always scrolling through their Instagram, but it's like once you're actually like engaged with someone and talking to someone one-on-one, like I'm talking to you here, it's like you're like, what are they going to say next? Oh, I don't want to leave right now because I'm going to offend them. I don't want to hurt their feelings and make my little conversation, then leave. And so anyhow, it just seems like it's like there's all these people here in America anyway, and actually around the world, that are like addicted to Clubhouse now and spend way too much time. And it's not free time they're spending. They spend all their free time, but then another like 4 to 10 hours a day beyond their free time on it. Exactly. How's your Clubhouse addiction, Wayne? How are you doing with it?
From Clubhouse right now at this moment doing this festival. I'm super glad I scheduled this festival in advance so that I'm not on Clubhouse, because I know that once I wrap this up, I'm back on Clubhouse again. So I was thinking, if I'm going to get addicted, I better run this festival on Clubhouse 100%. Yeah. And perhaps, reduce carbon footprint, because doing video consumes so much electricity, power, lights. Yeah. And in front of the camera, actually, it's quite strenuous, like doing this. If I could do this conference lying on a bed, right, and not worry about maybe showered and, having to pick the right clothes, for example. Yep. I think I can do even more Clubhouse conferences there than right here on this format. But I'm not saying that this format is no good, because I do like to feel my people that I connect with. I want to see them face to face as well. So Clubhouse is a good, probably a good marriage. I think a Clubhouse with LinkedIn, with of course all these multi-channels. This is where I think is a godsend, because content creators love multi-channels. We love to get our content discovered by new people. So the more the better. More Fireside, more Spaces, more Facebook, the better.
Yeah, I think so, and I think that just learning this new kind of world of audio is just a valuable thing for people. And I think, I mean, here's the thing is like with something like Clubhouse, like you get into a room with a bunch of experts and it's like, I'm going to ask you my most direct question and try to get an answer that's actually going to help me move my business forward today, you know? And literally I've gotten advice that I've actually applied the very same day I got the advice. Like, oh, or like mistakes I've made that people pointed out to me that like, oh, I was doing that wrong. And just being able to have that one-on-one conversation with people who are actually experts is pretty valuable.
Yeah, and the caliber of the people who are there right now, it's like every minute a new celebrity or a new influencer or thought leader enters the room, and that's the best time to engage them because they're still trying to figure out Clubhouse for themselves, and they appreciate if you actually walk them through the app, right? And then suddenly you're a good friend of this entrepreneur or this famous person. So that's something that I really love about Clubhouse. That synchronicity and also that spontaneity and the serendipitous moment, right? You can meet your heroes there.
And that's the thing. It's like at these early stages, but I'm sure you've been in those rooms that have like 1,000 people or more. And it's like, you're not going to get on the stage. You're not going to talk, or there are 30 people on the stage already. And they're all competing to like talk to Elon Musk or talk to Bill Gates or someone like that. And so it's just hard to get a word in. And so, but if you can introduce them and be like, let me walk you through this. Right. And then maybe you have a little advantage there. But I would say that, you know, a year from now, when there are millions and millions of more people on Clubhouse, it's going to be a little bit more complicated place to navigate. So get on now if you can. It's going to be a different world.
The fear of missing out as well. So I think majority of podcasters are now seeing more action there. That's a good thing. You know, it's a place where we can also congregate together and get to know one another. That's how I met you. So I'm super glad that Clubhouse appeared when I'm running a festival, or I'll never be able to find speakers for this festival. So it's a godsend. So it's great that, we have technology helping us. I'm going to go back and talk to you more about your podcast, the Go Snowboarding podcast.
Okay.
It really promotes DIY in snowboarding. So I think that DIY spirit is imbued in you, right? Because I've seen how you set up your gear by yourself. You actually, masking tape equipment together to do Clubhouse recording. And the same thing that you're doing with your podcast as well. You're promoting DIY in snowboarding. How incredible is that? Yeah.
I mean, it's really fun. And like, I didn't even realize that there were just so many people out there who, they like the other parts, the pro riders and the tricks and stuff, but really they connect with like building things and doing things and making and all of those kind of things. And it just opened up a whole new audience. And then hearing the stories firsthand of like, oh, here's a guy who built his own ski lift and he did it for less than $500. Right. And it's like, it works too. And people use it, and it's incredible, like what people have done on their own. And so sharing those stories is pretty neat. And just after being a snowboarder as long as I have, and then learning something new about a sport that I gave myself credit for knowing everything about, I didn't. And that's the great thing about it, is that you can constantly progress and learn by talking to different people. And so, just having different ideas and trying them out, I think, is a really valuable thing. And something, podcasting is young enough where, and I have sponsors, and so I do have financial obligations, or I'm trying to make someone happy with my episodes, but it's still young enough where you can experiment and get away with experimentation, where it's not like, in television, it's like a show is 24 minutes long and there's 6 minutes of ads in that show. And there's a format, there's an intro, there's credits at the end. And like, there's a way to do things in television and in magazines. There's a way to do things. Newspapers, there's a way to do things. In podcasting, it's like, can we do it? I don't know. Can we? And you just try to do it and you see if you can, and you're like, oh, that worked. That didn't work. Okay. But that's kind of the one of the coolest things about podcasting, is that it's such a new thing. And granted, it's been around 10 years. So there are people far more expert than me, but it's just really exciting to be able to try new things. And then also not get punished when you do try things that don't work. It's not like, oh, that's the end. It's like you can get away with trying things and having successes and failures as part of your thing, And a piece of advice that I have for all podcasters out there, whether you're in Asia, America, anywhere, is just like, don't put too much weight on that like launch, that first thing that you're doing, because it's going to improve over time. And I apply this Japanese business philosophy to my life. It's Kaizen, which is like the philosophy of constant improvement. And so I'm just constantly looking what I did in the past and trying to make little incremental baby steps to take it forward. But certainly, a lot of people are all caught up. I hear it in Clubhouse all the time. I'm going to launch a podcast, but I need to get my equipment right and this and that. And it's like, just start making podcasts. There's so much to learn. You're going to make mistakes. Know it. Embrace those mistakes and improve. And if people see you improving, they're going to stick with you. But if you get worse, or you start at the top and you just have a perfect show, it's maybe people are going to get bored of you. Oh, there's George, my dog, right there.
Hey, George. I love your philosophy, your mantra of just starting. It's like, dream big, but start small. But most importantly, just start. Yeah. So that's something that I think your Kaizen philosophy really resonates. And I think that one of the best episodes is the one where you featured a friend who happens to be living in Nepal, studying Buddhism. So he was sharing on your episode like how he lives $150 a month, and if we think that money can buy happiness, this episode will prove, money doesn't.
It doesn't. No, I mean, I have this kind of love-hate relationship with money, because obviously you need money to survive, buy food, pay for rent, all of those things, but it's not going to get you happiness. The happiest I've ever been in my life are things that are like snowboarding and powder snow or whatever. It has nothing to do with money. And maybe it took money for me to get there, but maybe it didn't. I've worked in this industry for a while, but I would say my happiest moments have happened not because of money, but because of passion. And so just disconnecting the passion from the money and people thinking that money buys you happiness. No, money rents you happiness, but it's fleeting, and you only get really short-term rent on those leases, right? And so, money can buy you a Ferrari and you can drive that Ferrari, but after like 6 months, you're like, I know this Ferrari now. It's familiar. It's old news, And anyhow, I just think that just finding happiness with or without money. Obviously money, you have to have a standard of living to a certain point, but beyond that, the money isn't going to increase your happiness with every more dollar you make.
And I urge our Asian listeners to go check out that episode. I think that one really resonated with me. Which other episodes do you think that we should check out?
There's an interesting one I did in my first year with a guy named David Schreiber. It's like in the first 40 episodes that I did, but he was the vice president of all marketing for Nike, which is a brand that makes sporting goods equipment here in America. But he had 7,000 directly reporting employees to him. And we had this like wild conversation about all sorts of things, Nike, about the language they speak in the corporation, and how you win and don't win at Nike, and all sorts of things. So that's an interesting one, just because he was such a powerful guy. I would say that, here's the thing is like, I stand behind all my episodes in terms of like, I don't think I turn out garbage. There aren't like episodes that I'm like, oh, I'm embarrassed by that one. Don't go to every episode, but that one, So I would say that most of them are pretty good. And it really depends on like what kind of thing is going to connect with you, resonate with you. So if it's a business person, I have like 100 people who have had like a significant role in entrepreneurship in the sport of snowboarding, following their passion, doing what they love. Those are really interesting. Just hearing those firsthand stories of the successes and failures, because I think there's something to be said for people who, use the success to push themselves forward, but use the mistakes as like learning experiences. Right. And so it's like all the mistakes I make, I'm like, okay, I'm never going to do that again. And all the successes, you just take a deep breath and you're like, okay, this does work. So anyhow, I would say there's a lot of great episodes. I mean, I have this episode with a guy who was making like $1/3 of $1 million a year just as a 22-year-old kid, and like all of that money was too much money for a young kid because then he got into drugs. And just that road to recovery for him is a really interesting story. And I think that connects with a lot of people as well. I think a lot of people have been affected by drugs. I'm not sure in Asia, but here in America, certainly, I mean, you would know somebody or have a relationship with somebody who's had some kind of scrape with drugs. So, certainly you can learn something from that. And really, hopefully, you can learn something from your passion. And so I try to speak to people who pursue their passions and then are looking to improve their own lives by focusing a little bit more energy on something they already enjoy.
This is brilliant. And we are definitely going to check out both episodes. So I'm a big fan of the Nike brand. So this is definitely an episode I'm going to dive right into after this. Thank you so much for coming on to the festival. We'll maybe see each other in Clubhouse very soon.
Looking forward to it, Wayne.
And I can insert you in our post-festival conversation series in Clubhouse as well, so that you can present a room and I can help co-moderate, yeah?
That would be awesome. I'd love that.
Fantastic. I'll see you in Clubhouse, my friend. Goodbye.
Thank you, Wayne. Appreciate it. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Mark. Bye. Helen, how are you?
Hey, Wayne. I'm doing good. Do I sound okay?
You sound great. I love your setup. I love your mic. It's
Thank
super
you.
sweet coming out from my headphones. So yeah, you sound great.
Nice.
Tell us
Thank
where
you.
you are and what have you been up to, for the past 1 week?
Yeah, so I have been podcasting every day for the last 100 days. This last week has been crazy. Yeah, every single day. I actually got chosen to speak on Podfest, so I've just been preparing for that talk, and I'm happy to be here. I'm so excited that you asked me to be on. How are you? How have you been?
I'm great. I'm feeling a little bit sore because I've been sitting upright for the past, I think, 30 hours now. And it will continue until, I think, for the next 18 more hours. So,
Oh
yeah,
my gosh, Wayne.
I'm re-energized by every single person that comes onto this festival. And they bring their A game. So it's like I'm learning so much from you guys.
Yeah. Question for you, Wayne, though. How do you stay so motivated and how do you keep going? Because isn't it like 4:30 a.m. over there? Like 5
It is.
5 a.m.?
Yeah. I'm looking at my clock right now. It's 4:38 a.m. So this is like a post-midnight session. Right? I had a nap, I think from 1 p.m. in the afternoon right till 7. So I had like good 6 hours of sleep after I've done a similar marathon last night. And ever since I've been doing, podcasting and streaming this particular festival, I haven't stopped because you guys have been re-energizing me. So that's my fuel. And I have this story to tell actually, because I remember I quit my job because I don't like to work 9 to 5. But now I work 24/7. But I love every single minute.
Every single minute. And your joy is so infectious. Like I went through a really weird funk this morning, but even encountering you, I think when you talk to people that you love, this is why I love the podcasting community. People love what they talk about. They love the things that they discuss. And it's amazing getting to live in a space where regardless of how much sleep you do or don't get, you wake up and you're always happy to go for it.
Yeah, 100%. I think our tribe is chill. Every tribe is special because you get that sense of belonging, community, right? And because when you're in a tribe, you can actually get together and do crazy stuff together. So that's what I really enjoy about being part of this community. And doing this festival is just a way of giving back and putting the spotlight on great podcasters like you. So tell us about your project, because you're definitely not Mark Sullivan. I apologize for putting the wrong banner.
That's okay. That's okay, Wayne.
The name of your podcast. Tell us who actually inspired you to get into podcasting in the first place. And give us the goods.
Yeah. So my podcast is called Who You Needed. My grandma moved into my family home when I was 15, and I immigrated here from the Philippines when I was about 6. So when I was growing up, I struggled with depression and anxiety and self-harm. And it wasn't until my grandma moved in that she became who I needed. And so the podcast is really inspired from her to be the change that you wish to see in the world. And I think a lot of people don't have the privilege of having someone like that in your life all the time. So that's why I created the podcast, Who You Needed, so that every time people log on, they feel a sense of home, belonging, kindness, and family whenever they come on. So that's why I created it.
I love the name of your podcast, Who You
Thank
Needed.
you.
It's like something that once you hear it, you'll be able to find answers. And even if you don't find it immediately, probably you stay tuned for the next episode and you'll probably find it in the next episode, right? That's why you're continuously podcasting and you don't stop, yeah?
Yeah, it's called Who You Needed because I don't want to be the person that's in the spotlight. If you know what I mean, like you, Wayne, who you need is completely different than who I need. And it's a way of really digging deep into the mind and thinking, what is it that I can bring to the world that will make people inspired and be fulfilled? And every week I have a different theme. So this week is Sustainable Change Week because every single day you wake up and you're tired, you're restless. And so part of having the energy to wake up every morning is really digging deep and understanding what are the things that I value and why do I do what I do? And just out of curiosity, because I love asking people questions, Wayne, how did you get into podcasting? What was it for you?
So this is like a reverse interview right now.
I just love having genuine conversation. If you have questions for me, feel free to ask.
Very willing to chip in because I rarely get interviewed. So now you're making a first in this festival where you're asking me questions. So I'll answer. Yeah, definitely. So what was the question again? Sorry.
Who did you need when you were younger, and how is it inspiring you to keep going?
Okay. As in who did I who I needed when I was younger, and like how many years ago when I was a baby, when I was a teenager, or recently?
Recently, what do you need now?
What do I need now?
Yeah.
Oh, that's a really great question, and it's deep and it's profound. Probably requires some pause and thinking before I give you an answer.
Yeah.
What do I really need now? I don't need anything, to be really honest. I think
awesome.
everything that I need. Maybe if I want to be idealistic or I want like perfection, right? Probably I would need perfect health. I think like every day, right, we are getting closer to having this sense of mortality. Like there isn't enough time. I'm not sure whether you had the same experience because I think I'm slightly older than you. So it's like people around my age are starting to see health problems. So what I really need is perfect health. I think that would be the absolute happiness for me. So I want to optimize happiness by having better health. That's the number one priority for me, actually.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting that when we ask for what we need, we always think about death and like life and how short life is? I think when I was young, I was raised in I'm an Asian American, which is why I love the Podfest Asia thing. And my grandma is 86. And I think when you think about the end of your life, you always get really caught up in how do I make a change in the world? What do I really want to impact? And I think that's why the podcast is what it is. It's because that's why I love asking questions. I love asking you questions. It's because every single day of our lives, our life is like a breath. Like we're here one moment and we're gone the second. And so how do I make my life matter? What things do I need to make it? And I think part of it takes having the right people in your life, interviewing the right people. Does that make sense at all?
It makes a lot of sense. And I think that you mentioned about your grandmother, right? She's 86 years old. Am I right?
Yeah, she is.
I have a grandmother who's 100 years old, and I recently went to visit her.
Wow.
It was Lunar New Year, so we celebrate Lunar New Year in Singapore, and we're a Chinese family. So I brought my kids. I have two Gen Z kids, and I'm basically when they were there, right? And they were on their phones, on their devices, on their iPads, and they were not interested in connecting. They were not interested at how rare that moment was to be able to sit down and have a conversation with my grandmother who's 100 years old. So I dragged my daughter, right? Her name is Courtney, by the way. I dragged her from the couch, asked her to put down the iPad, and asked her to hold the hand of my grandmother. And then I took a photo. And I observed the wrinkles on on the hands of my grandmother, and I compared it to my young daughter. She's going to be turning 11 in a few days' time. So like a contrast, right? Not just in terms of appearance, but also in terms of the age gap. It's like 90 years old gap between the two of them, between both women. So it's like that moment was, I just need to take a photograph of that. I need to archive it. I need to document it. So it's a picture that I'll always treasure. And I wish that my grandmother is able to talk more freely, because for someone of her age, right? She had difficulty remembering names as well. And it's hard to get stories out of her. How I wish that I discovered podcasting maybe 10 years ago when she was still able to, and I could record the conversation. So now that I'm just super glad that she's still with us. Is your grandmother, how is your grandmother, by the way?
She's healthy. She's very healthy. She's vibrant. She cleans the yard when she wants to. This is actually her room that I'm using right now. It's one of the few rooms. And I think part of it too is with age, you cultivate a sense of generosity and you end up looking back and you see the life that you've made. And I love that I get to just go to her room and I feel a sense of peace and belonging whenever I'm with her. She's vibrant. And I can relate because I also took a picture of me holding my grandmother's hand. And there's so many lines. And I think now we live in an age where we value being young, but there's so much value in being old because you see the work that's really put into someone's hands, and it's beautiful. And I think that we should value those stories. And I think that's why podcasts are so beautiful and so personal, because it's a recorded conversation of people. It's a way of bringing people together, and that moment in history is always going to be there. And you don't have eyes judge, right? So when you just have the voice and you just get to listen to someone's voice and have them recall your story, it's the most beautiful thing because you're just listening. You're not trying to see or look for anything. And I should do a podcast episode with her, Wayne. You brought up a good point. I should just record her and talk to her for a second. That's so good.
I was going to ask you the question whether she has guests, on your podcast yet. So you're going to do
yet.
it.
I'm going to do it because of you.
To hear it.
Yeah, I'm going to tag you. Wayne is the reason why I did the podcast today with my grandma.
I'm do it somehow so that we can all, I can ping everybody in and then be your listeners, be your audience while you interview your grandmother.
Yeah, I should. That's a really good idea. She should make her own account and everything. She does have an iPhone. She knows how to use an iPhone too.
Awesome. How I wish my grandmother, but of course, we can't always drag her into technology. Is something that she's not familiar with for sure. She's wheelchair bound, by the way. So for her to be able to sit up, to be able to sense that we are around her, right, is already a miracle. So I just appreciate the fact that she's still with us. So do you question or maybe ask yourself, will I live until 100 years old? Do you ask yourself that question too?
I always ask myself that question. I've actually been asking myself that the last few days with the pandemic going on right now and with everything that's going on in the news. I always question, what's the quality of my life? Am I living in health? And part of it too is genetics. I can't control for that. Some of my grandparents have died in their 50s, some of them in their 60s, and my grandma's in her 80s and she hasn't died yet. So I'm praying that I make it to 100, but I don't know what quality of life. Would you rather live up to 70 and be completely healthy and then suddenly die, or would you rather live to 100 and slowly lose your abilities? That's what I think about. Of as much as I want to have a long life, I want to have a life that's actually alive.
Yeah, that really resonates. I think.
Yeah.
I'm looking at my grandmother has been the only person that I know who is 100 years old and still alive. So I think she's my role model. And if I could be at her current stage, right, in terms of she is still able to sense us, she's still able to feel us, maybe talk to us briefly, but that's good enough, and for a 100-year-old. And if I could be like her and live to her age and still be like her at the state where she's in now, I'll be super happy. I think that means that I will probably be able to see human beings, right? Probably travel to Mars. I think that's certainty, right? We're dead on. and we're able to see technology evolve in even more, miraculous ways. I'm already constantly every day when I wake up, I look at the technology around us and all these great apps that are coming up every day. I'm like, wow, this is unrelentless, right? This is coming at you, and who knows what's going to happen next week or next month. Something even more amazing will be birthed, will be invented. The innovation is going to help us in so many ways. So I just hope that I'll stick around and be able to see all these dream ideas come to fruition.
Yeah, I think we're in the generation of information overload where there's so much technology being produced right now that Clubhouse didn't exist a few months ago. And here it is. It's becoming the largest growing app. It's the reason why we connected. Its podcasts have increased in revenue in the last 10 years. We have the potential of going to Mars in the next year, maybe. And I agree with you. I want to live long enough that I could see the world change. And things have changed so much in the last year. I think we've gotten a lot more hope. How has COVID been in Singapore?
It's better controlled in terms of we are really strict about wearing masks in public spaces. So there were a few occasions I've forgotten to bring my mask and I got myself in trouble. So it's
Wow.
really big trouble. So it's something that we're really strict on. So our cases are really low as a result of this strict control. So I think, it's something that we don't, really think that it will be continuously like this, because who knows what might happen tomorrow. It could be a sudden surge in some sectors and suddenly it goes out of hand again. So I think no country or no government in the world, right, has this really fully controlled and really nailed this on the head in terms of like preventing this from spreading or coming back in other repeated waves. So I'm just hopeful, hopeful that, long may this continue. And I've read reports that in US, the daily rate is dipping, right? It's not like going really sky high like before.
It's going down. It's because we've gotten vaccines. So we have access to vaccines now. I'm actually getting my second dose on Monday. So there's hope. Yeah, thank you. I'm excited about it. There's been so much stress, and I think that's why I love the podcasting community so much. It's a way for me to escape into someone else's world and really unpack what it is. I think that's why, like you've noticed, that I ask a lot of questions because it's my way of really trying to understand different people. Yeah,
I need to ask you this question. Who are the people that you interview on your podcast? And what are the most interesting conversations that you had so far on your podcast?
That's a really good question. I actually just interviewed someone 2 days ago. His name's Tom Corner, and he had a history of severe self-harm, just hurting himself. And the podcast really digs deep and asks people how they overcame really serious trauma. And that's what it's about. I originally wanted to be like Howard Stern and interview different people from different parts of the world and everybody, but I realized that my heart was really to unpack the human brain. So I interviewed psychologists. I interviewed a tenured psychologist from UCLA and asked her about mind gut health. I talked to her about how the things that we eat actually affect our brain function and the quality of our sleep. I also talked to life coaches and people who have struggled with suicidal thoughts. And I asked them, how did you go from here being super suicidal to having hope and not dealing with it anymore? And I think a lot of people in this day and age are so used to the quick and easy because you can just order things on Amazon and it just comes to your home. But now I think with the pandemic, people are seeing that there's gradual growth, that there's beauty in just knowing that you need help and taking the steps necessary to get there. And especially now with all the news reports going on in the United States, it's so easy to wish that you were living someone else's life. But sometimes it just takes one person. Statistics have actually shown this. Even if you've lived through the worst life circumstances, you live in poverty, your parents are not around, but if you just have one person that believes in you and tells you that there's going to be hope in the world, it can change your entire life. My favorite interview probably had to be that one a few days ago. Because if I'm being honest, I went into that interview as the host, super anxious, not really knowing what to do. And Tom, the guy that I interviewed, looked at me and he said, it's okay to not know. It's okay to struggle with questions. It's okay to just be in that pit. Yeah, that was my favorite one. It's coming out this week, actually. I'm editing it right now.
I'm super eager to listen to the episode because I think these are great topics, and I love it when people show vulnerability, especially the people are interviewing, right? That means that if they are showing vulnerability, they trust you. And I think the fact that they are able to bring out this from your guests, that means that you're doing a really great job. And
Thanks, Wayne.
getting your guests to trust you, that's like the biggest win of doing podcasting. And the wins of doing podcasting is not about money, ROI, or getting new advertisers. And those things are secondary. What's important is to gain the trust of everyone you're connected to on this medium, right? So yeah, I really love what you just shared about this topic about suicide, because it's something that I've seen or I've observed more and more. People are considering that as an option, as a way out. So what is your take on that? And do you have any things to share about those with suicidal thoughts, right? Normally, how do you talk them around and actually get them back on track again?
That's a really difficult question, because the truth is that you can't just tell someone that everything is going to be okay, especially with someone that deals with suicidal thoughts. The one thing that you do have to say is, I don't know. I don't know what you're going through. I don't know the thoughts that you have. But it's stopping to take the time to really unpack and ask those questions, because a lot of people are afraid to ask that question, right? Are you thinking about suicide? Are you thinking about killing yourself? But that person just wants you to ask. They just want you to ask, is that something that you're considering? And they just want to unpack why. And sometimes it's not just one moment, it's several moments. Someone could have lost their job. They also could have gotten a divorce. They just foreclosed their house. There could be a lot of things that lead into, it's better that I'm dead. And obviously seek the help of a mental health professional. And I'm getting a degree right now and to become a therapist. And these are things that we talk about. And I think if you look at the statistics, most people would rather talk about true crime and laugh. And I think sometimes the reason why mental health has such a huge stigma is because we're unwilling to ask these really difficult questions. So my answer is very simple. It's that take the time to really be present and ask people what they're feeling, what's underneath what they're feeling. Because suicide is such a big word, but there's a lot more under that. And yeah, just take the time to build relationship with people. I think that's what really changes hearts. It's what changes minds. It's the connection that you build with another human being and saying, I'm not here to change you. I'm here to understand. And that's ultimately the number one thing that you have to start with.
How about for those who are, I don't know, do you encourage people to go to as dark as possible? Because we know that many great things, right? Just for example, I love music a lot. I realize that the best music or the best records or albums, right? And the best songs especially are as a result of real anguish, anxiety, and insecurities that the artist was facing at a certain moment, and got them to actually feel inspired to write their next big hit or the next, single or song or album that really resonate with their audiences and their listeners. And many times when you see artists or musicians, right, when they get really comfortable with life, really happy, and you realize that suddenly the quality of the music also dips. Is it something that you encourage in terms of if someone is maybe encountering dark times, and you actually encourage them go darker so that you can see light at the end of it?
Absolutely. It's the reason why I actually made the podcast. I wanted people to understand that sometimes it's those hard moments that make us. Have you ever heard of how a diamond is made, and you have to keep smashing? You have to really put it under fire, and it's how a sword is made. When you're in a really dark situation, it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And part of the reason why I started a mental health podcast is because you should be going deep. That sometimes the beauty of a song is that you understand the emotion that you want to captivate. And I also play music, and my sister and I both write music together. And the Who You Needed song came out of heartbreak for me. We both wrote it after I got into a breakup with a boy. And I've gotten a lot of compliments from that song, and women from all around the world message me and say that they've actually benefited from the heartfelt words, but it's coming from a place of pain. But I think the reason why it resonates and it's gold is because you could be speaking to someone that needs that the darkness could actually be a light, that people don't see it as a green light, but it's actually a way to step forward. But you have to be willing to unpack it first. And vulnerability, I think in itself is a form of darkness, because you don't want to go deep. But then when you actually go deep, it unleashes this whole tornado of beauty for people. Like, oh, I can actually be human here. I can actually feel safe here.
What do you say to someone who is not willing to unpack? I'm asking this question because I have friends that I feel something is going on, but they're just unwilling to share. Maybe like I failed, as a friend because I couldn't get them to trust me enough to unpack and to show vulnerability.
That's a really good question. I would say that it has nothing to do with you. I would just say that it's okay if someone isn't ready to unpack something because they might not be ready to ask those questions. And it's the work that I do with people who have experienced immense trauma. Sometimes it's their way of surviving in the world. That when you go through something really traumatic, it can be really hard to really admit that it's hard for yourself because you don't even want to confront that truth. So as a friend, I would say just be there for them. Just say, whenever you're ready to talk about it, I'm here for you. I love you. There's nothing that you could do that would change my mind about that. So just reassuring that safety is 100% the foundation of getting people to open up.
I learned so much from this 30-minute conversation with you on how
Thanks,
to talk
son.
to my friends, how to be there, how to actually embrace darkness. Yeah. And of course, your podcast has upcoming episodes that I'm dying to check out, including the one featuring your grandma. And of course, this you're not currently editing and will be out soon, right? Tell us where it will be published and how do we find your podcast and your creations?
Yeah, you can just go to whoyouneeded.com. There's links to Apple, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. And you can go to the website too. It has links to every single episode. And I'm publishing an episode every day until May. So stay tuned. Every week is going to be a different topic.
I love your consistency, and I'm going to check out the episode featuring Tom after I wrap up this festival. Thank you so much, Helen. Wish you a great success with your podcast and also your studies. And and have a great Podfest Global, right, where you'll be speaking. I've actually signed up to attend. I won't be speaking, but I'm going there to listen and absorb. So looking forward to your session as well.
Yeah, thanks, Wayne. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Helen. See you in Clubhouse.
See you in Clubhouse. Bye.
Bye. Sam, how are you, my friend?
Very good, thanks. Just making sure you can hear me loud and clear.
You sound great. Your gear setup is perfect, and you look crystal clear as well. That's where you are, and what have you been up to this week?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I am currently in Auckland, New Zealand, and quite a few things, actually. Wednesday was really busy. I spoke at 3 events. First event was organized by Design Hell, which is a company like Fiverr and Upwork and all that. And then the second event was called Evolve by Swapcard in France. And then the third event was by Greenhouse.co, or which is like a co-working and a venture capital sort of firm in Indonesia and Singapore. So yeah, lots of things going on, but that's not my full-time thing. That's I just do for fun. I like speaking. I like talking about tech startups and all that. I have a tech startup of my own where we are gamifying trading and investment and finance. What we want to do is remove risk for people, and we want to make it full of sort of build it like a game, so anyone can give it a try for free. And yeah, we just want to get people excited about finance and trading and investment. So that's what I'm building. It's called Insider, ENSYDR.com. Apart from that, I'm an author. I write books on tech startups, and I also have a podcast just like you. But my podcast is about once again about startups. It's called Want Money, Got Money. It is where founders who want money and VCs and investors who've got money, I interview those sort of guests at my podcast. So yeah, that's in short about me.
Brilliant introduction. Thank you for helping me with doing the introduction. And of course, I'm very fascinated by your accent. You sound like you're from Singapore, from Indonesia. Am I right to say that?
No. Actually, I was born in India, grew up in India. I have spent a short amount of time in Southeast Asia, but very, very short amount of time in Southeast Asia. Last 19 years, mostly I've been in New Zealand, but I've also worked for a few months in Silicon Valley and spent short amount of time in Australia as well. So my accent keeps mixing and changing, and but yeah, I'm very familiar with the culture in Singapore, Malaysia.
You're a
Lots of friends
globetrotter.
there.
And, that leads to my next question. How do you juggle multiple roles as co-founder, CEO, venture partner, podcast host, and author?
I don't know. I don't know. I think it's just I didn't like I've been involved in startups for last 15 years. I've had two sort of smallish exits, small exits, and but I never used to share. And a year and a half or 2 years ago, I thought, you know what, going to start sharing. So I used to go to conferences and go to events, but only as a participant, only to listen. And I used to always think that, oh man, I would like to share my story and all that. So I started first by writing this book called The 30-Day Startup, and I wrote it in like 30 days with my co-founder in an agency. And I was like, I do it for myself. I do it to structure my own thoughts and get things out. And I did that, and 12,000 people went and bought it on Kindle or downloaded it or bought physical copy and all that. And so I thought, oh wow, there is something to this. And I started getting messages on LinkedIn that, hey, after reading this book, it inspired us to build a minimum viable product or get started. And I thought maybe there is something here. So I thought, you know what, I'll just share. So now I no longer prepare. I just share, and I just be who I am. So podcasting and writing and all that doesn't take any more time. I do enjoy this aspect of it. The other thing I do is I love connecting people. So whenever I meet people, say you are a tech startup founder and you're looking for funding, and I know VC, so I just connect you to that, or vice versa. And if you're a VC and you're looking for a limited partner or funding for your next fund, then if I meet someone like that, I just connect. So that's what I do, being a venture partner for Indonesian VC firm called Indogen Capital. And so yeah, it's just connecting people, and I was connecting people anyway, so I just do it for that role. So most of my time goes in working for my tech startup. So that is where most of my time goes. But I do work crazy hours, insane hours. I do work all the time, but partly it's not really work. It's I do it for the game. I love what I do, so it no longer stays work. And I'm sure it is really early hours in the morning for you right now.
Super early. It's this is a post midnight session. It's about 5 a.m. Right now in Singapore. So we're gonna embark on our breakfast session after 6 a.m. So yeah, it's okay so far, and you're bringing your A game as well. And I love your energy, and you're sharing a lot of good stuff. And the tech startup aspect is something that really intrigues me. A podcast host who also is a founder and a CEO of a tech startup. So we definitely want to talk about tech startup. How do you pronounce your startup? Nvidia? Is that how you pronounce it?
Insider.
Insider. So insider, like insider, right? Insider.
Yes. So it is like that. But of course, Business Insider, Tech Insider, all those are already taken. And I wanted it to be brandable. I could create a brand and register a brand name and trademark and all that. So that's why I looked for a unique sort of a name. So that's where the inspiration comes from. It's just that we wanted to there's millions of people outside the financial system, like countries like India. 98% of people nearly own no stocks or cryptocurrency or any financial assets. And I wanted to bring in every country, whether it is Malaysia or Indonesia or Latin America, it's like there's all this majority of the people in the world are outside the whole financial system, and I wanted to bring them on the inside, and that's where the inspiration for the name comes from, for Insider.
Yeah, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry. Yeah. I've forgotten to unmute myself. So I was going to be asking you about your tech startup Insider. You build esports for finance, right? And you focus on simple prediction mechanics. And also you create a community around showing off to your friends that you were right about the future price of an asset. So tell us, how does this work? And what is the process like in terms of someone who's interested to come on your platform? And who are your target audience actually?
Yeah, so our target audience is like you can say from 18 years to 30 years or young people. So for many years, or for most of my life, even after my first financial exit, I did not invest my money, apart from buying a house and things like that. And I realized that only in the last 1 or 2 years I started investing, and I realized that, hey, I have been really missing out. I could have exponentially be worth more if I had investing for the last 15 to 20 years. And that's when I thought, started looking around, that are there more people, and I found, okay, there are, hundreds of millions of people like me who want to, but they don't, because of one of the three reasons. And that is, it's very scary. If you go onto a stock brokerage account, there's 10,000 different assets out there, 10,000 different sort of stocks and things you can buy. There is so much noise. It looks incredibly boring for someone who is from a science or arts background, but not from the numbers background. So it looks super boring, super complex, and super risky. And so I started thinking, is there a way to remove these three things, make it super simple, make it gamified and fun, so it's no longer boring, and remove all the risk? So can we build like a simulation of the stock market, but it is fun? Can we organize tournaments? And since I was with an esports startup back in the days, which got acquired, it's like, can we take the principles from esports and apply them to the stock trading and investment? So what we do is we run tournaments. So say we run a tournament for Bitcoin. So everyone can go and predict. Already people do it on internet, but people can go on our platform, click on the Bitcoin meme, and then predict the price of Bitcoin in, say, 1 month's time. So you can invite your friends, you can compete against them. So your friend might be saying that everyone has an opinion on what Bitcoin should be worth. So now people can go and really predict that, and you can see who is winning that tournament. And whoever wins, we give out some small prize, like 100 Dogecoin, or fraction of a Ethereum or something like that. So so you can win a prize, and you can be a part of it without putting any money in, without taking any of that risk, and in a fun and a social way. The other thing we are planning to implement over the next month is a Reddit style forum and chat underneath every ticker. So if it's about Tesla, then underneath there'll be Tesla chat, and also you'd be able to see what people are predicting on the platform Tesla would be worth. Eventually, we will have ability for people to organize their own tournament and invite their own friends to compete against, and see who gets it right.
I love that you gamify this, and whenever it's fun, people will join. Yeah. So why are trading platforms such as Robinhood? I think they've been in the news recently, right? So they have seen like lower user growth rates due to like increased competition, and I think paying for your data, I think, will be quite valuable, right? And of course, they can even better understand like those remaining 98%, am I right, that aren't actively trading on their service. And you can actually help these companies like Robinhood even to continue growing.
Yeah, the thing with platforms like Robinhood is that there is still a massive risk, and they're not removing risk for people. So they are throwing people into the deep end, especially uninformed or new traders and investors. And so that's what we wanted to do, is remove the risk. So you can take part in the simulation on our platform for free. And then when you are ready, you can see that, okay, if you had been doing it for real, you would have lost this much money or gained this much money. And then when you are ready, we can refer them to someone like Robinhood or one of their competitors. The other thing for Robinhood is that there's been a massive number of new trading platforms out there competing, and so they are all stealing users from each other, and that's what they are all doing, but not bringing in new people. And that's what the new people who are being completely out of the system, who's not even on their mind, like trading and investing, but gaming. It is super big when it comes to just the sheer number of people, like 4% of people in US have a Robinhood account, but how many percent of US population is gamers? It's probably a lot more. So there's 2.6 billion gamers out there, and out of that 2.6 billion, only a very small fraction of them move into trading and investing, because it's still traditionally seen as very boring and very risky. So those are the two things we want to remove. We want to remove all friction for someone to get excited about finance and build generational wealth for themselves.
This is brilliant. I love the concept. I love the model as well that you're building for Insider. And why is your podcast, for founders and entrepreneurs and dreamers alike?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I wanted to interview like a lot of tech startup. I speak about tech startups, so a lot of tech startup entrepreneurs used to reach out to me about, they used to have questions about building a product, and then, okay, how do I get money to build a product? I don't have money. What do I do? How do I get started? How do I reach out to investors? All sorts of questions. How do investors think? All sorts of questions. So then I thought, why don't I build a podcast around that, and then I can share the knowledge from that podcast with relevant audience, and also connect them to the relevant people. So that's how it all started, because so many people have an idea, but they do not take an action. And just like you have a successful podcast and you're doing some amazing things, so many people would like to do it, but very few people take any real action, and you took that action. So I just wanted to build this podcast not only for dreamers but also for action takers, or get those dreamers into becoming action takers. So that's how it all kind of, my thesis behind it.
I love the tagline for your podcast. Yeah. So next question: what podcast listeners are able to learn, from the stories and sharing of all these other founders, investors, and entrepreneurs from around the world on your show, right? And do you think that you will really provide them, with shortcuts to success? Because we know that in life, there's no such thing as a shortcut.
There is no thing as shortcut, but okay, I'll go on to the shortcut thing second. First thing about what so the key questions I ask people is that, okay, so if you had to start all over again, what would you do differently? So you have learned things from your journey, and I go and interview young people as well as some people who are a lot older and at a much later stage of their life, where they have already made it. They've had some massive liquidity events, such as where they have had an exit, and they have made some large sum of money, and now they are going back and investing in startups and all that. So I ask those people that you've had a 20-30-year-old journey, what would you do differently now that you have got all that experience and knowledge? If you had to start from zero all over again, if you had to start from zero audience, no brand, everything, what would you do differently? And that's where I get some really good insights to really see what path they would take with all that knowledge. So that is it. And the second thing is leverage. And every year I have word of the year that I try and focus on. So there are ways to work hard. Everyone works hard, whether you are working in McDonald's, or you're working on a construction site, or you are working building a podcast or building a content marketing agency. Everyone works hard, but there are ways to get leverage in everything that you do, whether it's using machinery in construction to do 100 times the work, or when you are doing content marketing, using partnerships to reach to 100 times more people, 1,000 times, 2,000 times more people than you would otherwise. And that all comes down to leverage. So for me, I've given myself word of the year as leverage. It's like, you go to a conference to listen something. This is 2019 I'm talking about, not 2020, where physical conferences still happen, and you sit at people near you, so you talk to 2 or 3 people near you, and that's the impact you have. But whereas when you go to a conference and you are one of the speakers, everyone in the audience knows you, and it's not who you know, but who knows you. That's what I believe. So if you want leverage, so think of, when you think of shortcuts, think of that it's not that you won't have to work, you still have to do the same amount of work, but can you get more leverage with the same number of hours? So next time when you start thinking about starting your next thing, or even continuing your next thing, how can you get 1,000 times more leverage than your existing, and spend some time thinking about that. To take your show, take your startup, take your venture to the next stage.
Let's talk about your books, because you have a few best-selling books like the 30-Day Startup, How to Create a Successful Tech Startup in 6 Weeks for Less than 50K, Business in the Time of Corona, How to Pivot Your Career or Startup and Succeed in Disruption. So many fascinating titles, right? Do you plan to actually turn them into like audiobooks, or maybe even a new podcast series?
Yes, audiobooks, definitely. Yes, in future I do want to do the audiobook thing probably in the next few months. Just that, as you know, I have been quite busy, but so I would not be starting another podcast. I'll just continue with my current podcast, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. So I'll just keep going, keep talking with the same type of guests, because they are kind of like my tribe. They are my type of people. So I'll keep continuing with that. The first book, How to Start a Startup in 30 Days. What I mean by that, it is you are starting it, you're not finishing it. It is a lifelong journey. When you do start a startup, it might be a 2-year, 5-year, 10-year, 50-year journey. Who knows? But just at the start, and when the key difference between a startup and an established business is that as a startup, you are nimble and you can move fast. You don't have the deep pockets, you don't have the finances, but you have the speed. You don't have to have 3 committee meetings and a board meeting next week only to plan for the next general meeting and all that sort of thing. You don't have that bureaucracy in a tech startup. You are a small startup, you're really nimble. You want to do something, you make the decision within an hour, it should be live. It should be, you want to test an idea, you make some Google ads and Facebook ads and see if people even respond, and do it in next hour or two. So you have the ability to be nimble, so go and just do it. You should not spend too much time thinking about vanity things such as logos and brand names and all that stuff. It's like, just get started, just do it. So that is the key sort of a message. Get started in the 6 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks. Have something out there that people can start using as fast as possible, so you can learn from the feedback, keep improving for the next 5 years or 10 years. So that is the key sort of message or methodology. The second one, Business in Time of Corona, it's all about pivoting and how to pivot, how to find that niche, how to say if your business is highly disrupted, what you should do. And the key thing is that look at your existing strengths, look at your, delivering this message in a really short time, because we have only so much time. But yeah, one of the thing is, look at not only what you're passionate about and what you're interested in, but where your skills lie. It's like, I'm passionate about basketball, but I'm 5'10", I'm not 6'10", so that's not where my skills lie either. So you have to look at your own inbuilt strengths and skills, not only your passion. So when people say that follow your passion, it's good advice, but it is incomplete advice. Follow your passions and find what is at the cross section of your passions and your skills and strengths. So what is at the cross section of all these things, find that, and then go and pursue that. And then the next thing is that you have to see what alternative people will use. Say currently, podcasts were growing really fast, but an alternative that a lot of people are using to podcast is Clubhouse. And I'm sure you are there on Clubhouse, you're really active on Clubhouse and all that. And so there will be a whole niche of products, a whole array of tech startup products will be built to support people using Clubhouse, whether it's organizing events, making event pages, taking charging people, organizing those sort of events, audience on Clubhouse, training courses on how to do Clubhouse. All sorts of things are going to be born out of that. So think of where people are moving to next, so you can build either the product or the service to help people where they're moving to, and that's one of the ways how you can pivot. Yeah.
Great sharing. I think your Clubhouse example, right, is a great case in point about going where the audiences or the listeners congregate. So right now, as a podcaster, I really want to see a few features. I think number one, top of the list, is to be able to record in high fidelity, so that you know that there's a music mode when you connect some of the equipment, right, to your iPhone or iPad. And it's uncompressed audio, but it's still not good enough. Sometimes, especially when people talk to one another, it's still not very broadcast quality, although it's okay quality, And the ability to maybe we'll click a button and to be able to distribute it across to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, that's what we want. And if we are going to just have unedited, conversations, that are carried out in Clubhouse rooms, especially in those closed rooms, right? I think there are even more fascinating conversations going on in those closed rooms that we are not invited to.
I love small groups. I love small groups on Clubhouse, 20 people, 15 people. Yeah.
Which are the rooms that you frequent the most, and which are the most interesting rooms you've been so far?
Oh, I don't spend a lot of time on Clubhouse because it is so time intensive. And as you know, I have so many things going on. But I have some friends. One is Billy Samoa Salibi and Brendan Kumarasamy. They're like really good friends of mine from the podcasting days this is 6 months ago. I'm talking as if it's 20 years ago from the podcasting days. Yes, I just follow them, and they just invite me once in a while to join if they start a small group. But yeah, they've got now nearly 10,000 people following them. So as soon as they start something, they immediately get 500 people, 600 each, so 1,000 people immediately. But I was enjoying it a bit more when it was really quality people, and we were just kind of like having a brainstorming session and helping each other out, and just 15, 20 people and more interactive. I don't know. So that's my experience so far.
I think I met Billy Samuel on Clubhouse before as well. I think I've been in his rooms a couple of times. So he's always talking about podcasting. So has a lot of great tips and strategies to share. So his rooms are definitely very interesting to hang out in. And you're talking about all this great tech that have been built, developed, and it seems that the next 1 million podcast shows, right, will actually be birthed out of Clubhouse. Like we have seen over the last year, right? Anchor, basically, they are like singularly responsible for 1 million shows added to the inventory. To the Podoscape, what our good friend Evo Terra likes to philosophize and talk about the Podoscape. So do you agree with that statement that Clubhouse is going to create another 1 million shows within this year?
I think 1 million is a very, very conservative number because you have to realize that currently Clubhouse, as of last month, was 6 to 7 million users. It is only on iOS, and it is only invite only. So it is very hard for people, and there are already lots of scams on people getting ripped off, paying $50 for an invite and not getting an invite and all that. There's already lots of scams. So so when it opens up to everyone, and then it adds Android on top, and then it adds a bit more tools and things on top, it can easily cross 100 million users and 10 million plus rooms, shows, whatever you call them. So 1 million is very conservative. The other thing I would really watch is Twitter Spaces, because Clubhouse is built on external technology, Agora, and just from the tech background, I'm speaking from that side, and Twitter has inbuilt strength that it already has hundreds of millions of users. I don't know the exact number of active users it has, so it is very, very easy for Twitter to introduce, if they do it right, to introduce something and be a major competitor to Clubhouse. And so I think that'd be interesting to see.
How about the AI element that Mark Cuban is definitely going to be, implementing for his Fireside app, right? Which is a podcasting app. I think it's branded as a podcasting app more as a social app, but the ability to actually connect with quality guests and quality podcasters without doing any heavy lifting by yourself, right? Do you think that Fireside is going to be also adding, these 1 million podcast shows like this year? I think we're all waiting for its imminent launch, right?
I don't know. The jury is still out. AI has a lot of promise, but the jury is still out. I don't know, a few years, if you remember, chatbots was all the rage. Everyone was, into chatbots and building chatbots and all that. But it's like, people still want to connect with people. And there's matchmaker.fm and there's lots of places like that where, and other places like that. I've used some other platforms like that where they say, not Matchmaker, but the other platforms, they say that they'll match you with other guests using AI and stuff, and they have less of a success rate than Matchmaker does without the AI and stuff. So I don't know if that's as much of a unique advantage that it's drumming it to be. It is hard to say at this stage. Clubhouse has the momentum, and people are saying good things about Twitter Spaces. So I think Twitter Spaces has the potential to be really big.
Fascinating. So it's something that we are all looking forward to. Any last message before we bid you goodbye? And any last message for our audience in Asia?
Oh yeah, just do it. Just don't wait. You don't have to be perfect. And this is the new thing that people used to wait to be really, really perfect before starting to create their own content in any form, whether it is TikTok or whether it is, you can be imperfect because there's only one of you and only you have your own story. So go out and start sharing it. You have no idea who you might inspire and whose life you might go and change. So just go out and start sharing, start creating content, start connecting with people online.
Beautiful sharing. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this, Sam. And I look forward when you come back to Singapore to visit us. Just give me a call and let's go coffee together. Yeah.
Absolutely. Let's do that. So thank you so much for the invite and looking forward to your continued success. Thanks, man.
Thanks so much, Sam. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye. See ya.
Cheers. Hi, Katie. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm still super wide awake because I've been doing podcasting of this festival since last night. So this is day 2 already. And I'm quite surprised that my workout and my hard work at the gym has paid off because I have stamina now, better than before.
Yeah, well, I'm drinking coffee and it's 3:00 in the afternoon here almost. So more power to you, man. That's awesome. Congratulations.
Where exactly are you at, and what's been going on in your city, your hometown, during the past 1 week?
Yeah, so I'm in Denver, Colorado, and we just got about 16 inches of snow overnight. So we are full on winter here in Colorado.
That's great because I'm in Asia, sunny island, Singapore. I don't get to experience snow here throughout my entire life. So how I wish I could get some snow. It's something that we always fantasize about, but sometimes we do go to Tokyo to get some snow. So, and New Zealand, of course, Sam is from New Zealand, so those are our favorite places to get snow. So are you a big fan of snow sports?
I am. I actually am an avid snowboarder, and I ski also, and we're going snowmobiling in a couple weeks. So I guess when you live in Colorado, you have to fully embrace being cold and being in the elements if you want to really love it here and all that it has to offer.
I think our previous guest, he has a podcast called the Snowboard Project. In fact, he's from from Colorado, Denver, right? Denver. So he was sharing how you can actually do a DIY setup to build your own lift or to build your own resort if you don't have actual resorts where you can go to during this lockdown. So he was sharing some really fascinating stories about how he's able to educate his audience and listeners on doing it the DIY way. So have you ever built your own chairlift before?
So no, I haven't, but I did work as a snowboard salesman for a little bit, and I know how to set one up and all the different features and technology that go into a snowboard, but that's about it. I could never actually build a snowboard, and with the fiberglass and all that technology, that would be a lot.
Yeah, it's so mind-blowing hearing him share that story. So today we're going to ask you to share your story as well. We know that you are the owner of Next Step Social Communications, which is a social media agency, right? So it's also based out of Colorado. So you've been helping small business, real estate agent, construction companies, home builders with their social media for over 15 years already, right? So tell us how you got into coaching entrepreneurs, and tell us how social media can be a great tool to help new leads, help to find new leads for them, and build community, grow sales, and bring social back to their social media.
Yeah, so I mean, I know you say 15 years, and when you introduced me a little bit on LinkedIn as one of the speakers for this, somebody commented 15 years. Has social media even been around that long? And yeah, it has. So I started in the social media world back in the days of MySpace. So I started back when I was in college helping bands get their music out to different radio stations and record labels. So that's when I first got the opportunity to dive into social media. And I had a bit of a background as a radio reporter. So I was a sports reporter for the radio station here in Denver for a bit. And I had always been doing social media for small businesses, but it wasn't like the empire that it is today. I mean, social media, when I first got started, was, like you said, Facebook used to just be for colleges, and there was MySpace, and then Twitter kind of came out. So there weren't actual jobs to be in social media. And one of the things that I learned was all self-taught. And so I was helping a lot of small businesses get up onto their Facebook and create coupons and do all these different social media advertising. But I was doing it, just for the small businesses. So it wasn't until about 4.5 years ago that I really niched down and started working strictly with people in the home industry. So I still help entrepreneurs with coaching and teaching them what I've been doing for the past 15 years. But as far as doing the social media for people, it's all in the home industry. So home builders, realtors, contractors, home organizers. Those are all the type of clients that I work with to actually do their social media. But yeah, like you said, 2020, I think we all had to do a bit of pivoting. And that's when I really started coaching more people on how to do social media the right way, how to find the right kind of formatting, and how to read their insights, and again, how to maximize their presence on social media.
That's really interesting. And of course, you have pivoted really well. I've seen you. In fact, how we get to be connected was because of Clubhouse, right? Definitely, we want to go deep into Clubhouse later on. That's a really great, interesting discussion, and that I'm actually having. So much fun talking about Clubhouse with every single, keynote speaker on the festival. So we'll save that for later on. First, can you maybe share with us how you actually help these companies that you mentioned create an incredible campaign that works, and also you level up their marketing using audio branding?
Yeah, so I help a lot of my clients figure out the best platforms that they need to be on for their social media. I think that one of the most common mistakes that a lot of businesses make when they're on social media is that they think they need to be on every single social media platform known to mankind. And if you think about it, there's a lot out there, and now there's a new one, which is Clubhouse. And so it can be hard to be like, well, how am I supposed to be in all these places? Like, that seems like a full-time job. I still have a business to run. And what I like to try and teach people and help my clients with is to go all in on the platforms where their ideal clients and customers are, and push out amazing content for that audience. And then if you feel comfortable adding in more social channels later on, then you can. But just think about Instagram, for example. So if you are posting on Instagram, there's 5 different ways that you can post on it. There's the feed, which is, just basically the little square that you scroll through. So there's the feed. There's Instagram stories, which are those little 15-second videos that you see in the circles at the top. There's IGTV, which is long form video. There's Instagram Live, which is live video, and now there's Instagram Reels. So those are like kind of like the TikTok short form videos. And if you think about it, if you want to just say, okay, well, my clients, my ideal customers are hanging out on Instagram. How am I going to connect with them and make sure that I stay top of mind with them? And it's by hitting all those different ways to be on Instagram. So if you decide to choose just one social media platform and go all in on it and be amazing at it, that is where you're going to build up your following and really build those brand advocates and the big and loyal customers is by showing up consistently on that social media feed. So I think that's one of the biggest mistakes I see a lot of my clients making before we get started, is that they think they need to be on every single social media platform known to mankind.
That's a great point. And you're helping them to zoom in on the right platform, right channel, of course. So why should brands, companies, and podcasters create a content calendar to make it easy to start a conversation with the audience?
So a content calendar is going to help you get some strategy behind your overall social media posts. So I know that unless you are someone like me, where all you do is social media is not your main job. And it can seem overwhelming to be like, oh man, I haven't posted on Facebook for a while. I better go ahead and do it. And so it ends up being just a random picture of like a coffee mug or of your dog, and it's like, well, wait a second, how does this mean that you sell real estate? Or how does this mean that you're a podcaster? So I help people develop that content calendar so that they know, okay, on Mondays between the hours of 3 p.m. and 5 p.m., that's when my audience is most active on Facebook. So I'm going to share this piece of content at that time. And a content calendar can help you do that. If you have the overall calendar for the entire week or month, and you know that, okay, on Mondays is my high engagement time on Facebook, and that's when I'm going to push out a video because the majority of my audience is on. So you can create everything in advance and set it up in as little as an hour a week. I strongly believe that you can have a strong, successful social media presence in as little as an hour a week if you just devote that time to it. It can be at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. It doesn't need to be like right in the middle of the day. But that way you have a strategy and a system beside your social media so that you are ready to go and you're not just scrambling for something to post because you haven't done it yet.
That's really great sharing. I think you provided so many great tips already in this short 15 minutes. And of course, now the next segment is about Clubhouse. So I know that you recently posted about some of the, top 10 tips or like great advice on how to really crush it on Clubhouse, right? So maybe will be very beneficial for our Podfest Asia community. How do you actually host your own popular room on Clubhouse, from the naming of the topic or the room to actually scheduling to the moderation and timing?
Yeah, so Clubhouse, it's the latest and greatest social media app out there. Back in December, there were 600,000 users, and as of today, there's 10 million. So, I mean, it has just blown up over a very short period of time. And it's one of those things where it's just going to get bigger with the more people that are on it, because you get invites, and it's going to really change the way that we are doing social media. Because there's no DM feature, so there's no direct messaging feature. So you have to go over to Instagram or Twitter if you want to have a further connection or a deeper conversation with somebody. So it's not like you can just wipe out another social media channel. It's another one that is being added to. And one of the parts of Clubhouse that make it so unique is that you can have those authentic conversations with people from all over the world, and everyone comes together based on a similar interest. So podcasting, I host a number of podcasting rooms, and it's a great opportunity to just get a whole bunch of podcasters in one spot and network. It's an entirely new way to network, to learn, to have conversations, and I think it's really exactly what the world needed after the year that we just came from in 2020, where we were all just trying to kind of have that human interaction. I mean, we all miss those random coffee shop conversations where you can just walk up to somebody or overhear a conversation and chime in. And Clubhouse gives us that opportunity. So that's my pitch for why Clubhouse is a fantastic social media platform. But as far as hosting a room, that is one of the best ways to establish yourself as an authority and to really help leverage your business and your brand go to that next step. So hosting a room is when you pick out a title and you are the one that is speaking in that room. So there's a lot of things that you need to think about before you just go and open up a room. What I like to advise people to do is, if you want to open up a room, decide if you want to be solo or if you want to have a co-moderator. Going solo it can be tricky. There's a lot of back-end stuff that you need to do, bringing people up and down, reading people's bios. I also like to send people a DM whenever they come up to the stage. So, I mean, like, there's a lot of work when you're moderating. So that's why I think when you're just getting started, having a co-moderator is a fantastic first step. So find someone, let's say in a podcasting room, and say, hey, you know, Wayne, I would love to potentially host a podcast room with you, all about the subject of how to find great guests for your podcast. What do you think? And you can have that conversation over in the Instagram DMs. From there, if you said, sure, let's do it, don't just go and open up the room. I then recommend that you open up a private room, just you and your potential co-moderator, so you have the opportunity to speak. You want to make sure that you are both on the same page for your room presentation, because the last thing that you want to do is open up a room with someone and then you have completely differing beliefs or strategies on that topic. And then you guys are giving conflicting information, or you guys could potentially argue on the stage. So, I mean, that's not what anybody wants to hear. So make sure that you have that private room so you guys can actually have a real conversation before you open up the room. From there, I set up an outline of all the different topics that I want to discuss while hosting the room, especially if I'm moderating by myself. Since I come from radio and podcasting, I'm used to talking by myself for an extended period of time, but not everybody is used to that, and it can seem pretty overwhelming or intimidating if you have to just stand up and speak for 30 minutes. Not everyone can just go on a topic. So I have that base outline and then share it with my co-moderators. And then from there, back to your question, titling the room. It is such an important part of Clubhouse because there's no way to search a room. So if I wanted to find a room about podcasting, I can't search it. I just have to hope that it shows up in my hallway. So having a powerful title is extremely important. And I like to tell people to think of the title of their room as a subject line of an email. So what's going to get someone to click on the email to open it is having a fantastic subject line. And you have to think of your Clubhouse room title the exact same way. So you found your co-moderator, you've opened up a private room with them, you've made your outline, you've picked out your room title, you scheduled it. You're always going to schedule your room because then you notify people twice. One, when the room goes live, but two, that the room is coming up. So even if the room's coming up in 5 minutes, still schedule the room. So I scheduled that room. It's finally time, guys. You're going to go live in the room. And this is where you can set the stage of what's going to happen in that room, what type of room it is going to be, and how long the room is going to go for. If you're going by yourself, I think 30 minutes is fine. It's a great goal to have because if nobody raises their hand, you need to be prepared to speak for 30 minutes. And then if you do go over the 30 minutes, then you can always add more time. But then if you end it early, it kind of seems a little weird. So if you're going by yourself, I recommend 30 minutes. If you have a co-moderator, I think an hour is a great spot. There's rooms sometimes that go on for days. And I don't know about you, but I have a business to run and a life outside of Clubhouse. So I really think that those 1 hour long rooms are perfect because then people can come and hear a little bit and then you leave them wanting more. So I hope that answered all your questions about the hosting a Clubhouse room, but it's a fantastic way to really identify and communicate with your new ideal clients and customers.
Thanks for breaking it down for us. I think all these step-by-step instructions make life so easy, so much easier for podcasters who haven't really explored that realm yet. I think that once they are on Clubhouse, right, they'll be fascinated by the number of great people they can actually meet. And they could even open a room, set a topic, and then wait for people to come in and provide them the answers. That's what I do these days. If I have a question, right, I basically just ask that question and I open a room, and then the experts will come in and share with me. So that's what I love about Clubhouse so far. And definitely we're not gonna, let you go yet until we ask you the next question. Regarding Clubhouse again, what did you actually learn from hosting multiple rooms per day on Clubhouse for months?
Yeah, so I was invited to Clubhouse mid-December, and when I be totally transparent with you guys, I was like, God, this seems like a giant time suck. I don't think this is anything that I'm interested in being a part of, because for me, social media was a passive way to interact and engage. I could scroll through the feed while watching TV or, multitasking. I mean, I could be on social media and do other things. Where with Clubhouse, I really couldn't do that, especially if you wanted to moderate a room or to speak in a room. You can't just be passively on there. So I didn't really dive into Clubhouse until after the first of the year. And I decided, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and just listen to some rooms. So I started listening, and then I kind of figured out how it went. I raised my hand for the first time. And then after that, I was like, okay, well, this isn't too bad. It's just kind of like a live podcast. So the very first few rooms I opened are similar to what you said, Wayne, where I asked questions and then the experts came to me, or I asked a question and had kind of like an open discussion on it with just other people from Clubhouse. And I've had the opportunity to meet some amazing people. I mean, like, honestly, like, I've met like some really good friends since I've been all in on the platform, because you can talk to them so quickly. It's not just another pretty picture in the feed. It's not just an inspirational quote or graphic. You can actually have a discussion with someone that might have similar or thoughts to you, or completely new insights that you never even considered. So it's one of those things where once I got it, I was all in on it, and I started hosting some rooms. And from there, one room turned into two, and then you find new people that you connect with, and it's like, well, yeah, let's host a room together. And before I knew it, honestly, like I was almost going like for like I was hosting about 6 rooms a day, and I had to scale things back because I wasn't getting any work done. And so once I scaled things back, and I have my regularly scheduled rooms, so I have 1 room a day that I host. And then some days there's 2, but for the most part, I have 1 room a day now. And I have them all listed on a landing page, katiebrinkley.club. And that way people can always see what rooms that I have coming up, and then add them to their iCalendar or their Google Calendar so that they can make sure that they don't miss the next time that room happens. But it's completely changed my business and the way that I meet people and make those connections now. Like I said, I've met people from all over the world, and it found some fantastic business partners. I've hired some people that I've met from Clubhouse, and it's really just a great way to accelerate the business path and the business journey.
So how did you actually choose or pick which request to actually moderate or co-moderate a room together? I'm sure that you're receiving tons, right? And how do you decide which one to actually agree to co-moderate together on? And how do you reject them?
Yeah, so I mean, and that's where you do have to be very strategic and make sure that you are in alignment. That's why having that private room in the DMs it's a great way to start, because you guys can actually have a conversation. So I think that is one of the ways that I kind of screen what opportunities I want to be a part of. But since, like I said, I've been hosting a lot of rooms, and I'm now booking paid moderating opportunities. So people will ask me to basically interview them for the room, and we will do basically kind of like a podcast interview or like a live interview of that person, and then open it up for Q&A. Or I'm doing like kind of the MC kind of position where I will reset the room. I'm looking for people to bring up, and so I mean, now that I'm doing more paid opportunities, it's different kind of screening process, but I still do the other opportunities when people reach out and say, hey, these are the rooms that I'd love to moderate with you. I do make them send me the request of the type of room that they want to do. Like, so I ask them to give me a room title and to put together an outline as to what they kind of have envisioned for that room. So that way we both know that it's going to be a good fit, and it's not just willy-nilly opening up a room. Like, yeah, you can absolutely do that. But for the types of rooms that I'm trying to associate with myself with providing value for every single time I take the stage, I do need to make sure it's a really good fit, and sometimes it just isn't. So And I think that everybody understands that, just like with any sort of business opportunity.
How do you actually guarantee, or should I say, ensure that there's maximum attendance? Like there's enough people who show up, because nobody wants to go in room and be actually talking to an empty room, right? So what are your strategies around that to ensure people actually attend?
Yeah, so I use the ping feature, so the little plus button, so to invite people in. But I think that that's where it all comes back to a title and the reputation that you build on Clubhouse. So, I get a lot of people that join my room without having to invite them in, strictly just because they know, well, one, the title is good, and two, they know that every time that I take the stage, they're going to learn something. And so that's just the tip for the reputation that I've tried to build on Clubhouse since I've kind of gone all in on the platform. But there is no way to guarantee how many people are going to come, because you might have 100 people in a room one week at on Thursdays at 1:00, and then the next week you have the exact same room title, exact same time, exact same day, and you might only have 20 people. And unfortunately, we don't get data yet. There's no insights for us to get from Clubhouse yet, and so we can't really track to see when our followers are on. I use a lot of promotion. Like I said, I have the landing page that I direct people throughout the week. I promote rooms that are of importance on my social medias through stories and through posts and through live video. So if there's rooms that you really want to have a strong attendance in, promote it on your other social media channels, especially Instagram and Twitter, because that's a direct link over to Clubhouse.
This is fantastic. Thank you so much, Katie, because you brought so much great insights and tips as well, and strategies for us, for podcasters. So do you have any podcast show to plug?
Yeah, so I actually have two podcasts. I have my own podcast, which is Rocky Mountain Marketing. It's a weekly podcast, comes out every Tuesday. And then I'm the co-host on the Across the Pond Sports Network. So I co-host the NFL shows. As I said before, I started my career in sports journalism. I was a sports reporter here in Denver. So that is more of a passion project, but it is so much fun. My co-host James is in Scotland, and we have opinions from both sides of the pond on American sports.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for agreeing to do this. And we're going to do a Football Fest Asia Clubhouse live event. So I hope to insert you in our event program as well, so that both of us can actually co-moderate a room together now that we're connected. So let's maybe see each other again in Clubhouse really soon, yeah?
Yeah, that sounds great. Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Katie. You have a great day ahead. Bye-bye. And that brings us to an end for this post-midnight session. I think Katie Brinkley really brought her A game and gave us so much great insights, right? So go check out her website, katiebrinkley.com, as well as her two podcast shows. So coming up next, I have more guests coming up for our breakfast session. So I'm going to maybe take 5 minutes toilet break, and I'll be back with more guests. So stay tuned, yeah? And in the meantime, I'll see you guys really, really soon. Bye-bye.